They can't move through the system. And rather than keep them in cages for what could be months and months going through court processes, we'll send them to a foster home.
Okay. Maria, what if someone wants to take the easy way out? So I have a family dog, two actually, one named Max, one named Rico. And I like to see them temporarily. When I'm around them, I'm excited and I'm like, all right, bye, going back to, my place. They're actually in Colorado now. But for the person who might say, I can't foster permanently, they're taking that easy way out, what other options are for them to volunteer through you?
Absolutely. So we do have a very robust volunteer program. We have volunteers who work with all of our different animals. We do require that people have the ability physically to handle those animals. So we do have some physical limitations. We call it our essential capabilities, that to work with the animals people must meet, and they are available on our website so that you can review them before trying to sign up to volunteer. But we have volunteers
Good morning, everyone. Today is our very last session for the year. I feel the holiday coming this way. Let's all be happy for the rest of the session today. So we will begin today's meeting with general businesses, actually. So, Madam Clerk, can you please share any announcements?
Good morning. The council will hold a public hearing for the Clarksburg Gateway Sector Plan on January 21st, 2026 at 7:00 p.m. at the Rocky Hill Middle School cafeteria in Clarksburg, Maryland. Those wishing to provide testimony must register in advance via the council's website or by calling 240-777-7803. More information can be found on the council's website. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number B, action, approval of minutes. November 5, 2025, council meeting greet with the villages of Montgomery County. November 5, 2025, council youth town hall. November 12, 13, and 14, 2025, council sessions and closed sessions. And November 18, 2025, council sessions have been circulated to council members for review. Are there any objections to approving these minutes? Seeing none, these minutes stand approved. Our first agenda item this morning is action on a resolution to confirm the next county council member. Very exciting day. Our colleague Gabe Albornoz, as you all know, resigned from his role as an at-large council member effective December 1st. And this council has engaged in a very careful process to seek applicants for this important role. We received 67 applications, and the council interviewed 3 highly qualified candidates last week: Shebra Evans, Henry Lee, and Roberto Rodriguez. I thank all who applied and our finalists for participating. We're now taking action to confirm a new council member. Is there a motion to appoint a new council member? Moved by Council Member Sidney Katz.
Second.
Second by Council Member Stewart.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam President. It is my pleasure to nominate Shebra Evans for the at-large seat on the Montgomery County Council. But before I talk about Shebra, I wanted to mention how truly fortunate we are in Montgomery County to have so many dedicated and willing people to serve on the County Council. To all who applied for this position, I want to personally thank for making this selection so very difficult. I strongly believe Shebra's experience working with the county gives her the resources and understanding of how Montgomery County operates, and she will be able to hit the ground running as we try to figure out how we're going to tackle the complex and significant issues we are facing in 2026. During her 8 years on the Montgomery County Board of Education, including 2 terms as president, Shebra demonstrated a strong voice and value-driven leadership with one of the largest and most diverse school systems in the country. She helped guide the Board of Education through a $3 billion budget and a $1.8 billion capital improvement plan with a focus on aligning education with workforce development and economic opportunity. I had known Shebra for many years, but got to know her even better when I was president of the council during the unprecedented time of dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. It was only through working together, all departments and agencies, sharing resources, coordinating distribution efforts, and coming together as one county that made us strong and helped us navigate through those desperate times. Shebra has shown that even through the most difficult of times, she has stood strong, made tough decisions, collaborated, and problem solved to ensure resources and support were there for those who needed it. My list could go on and on, but let me say I am honored to nominate Shebra Evans to serve as our next at-large council member. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilmember Katz. This motion to nominate Shebra Evans has been moved by Councilmember Katz and second by Councilmember Stewart. Is there any discussions or comments? I see Councilmember Will Jawondo.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Councilmember Katz and Councilmember Stewart, for the motion in the second. I will be enthusiastically, as I think everyone will be, supporting this nomination. I've known Shebra for probably more than 15 years, and her family, I see some of whom are here. And there will be no one that will work harder, care more, and be more dedicated to this year and this work ahead. And as was mentioned by Councilmember Katz, we had a lot of tough choices to make. There were a lot of qualified people, including our finalists. But I am just personally proud that I get to sit next to you, because this is going to be your seat, and work with you for the next year, which will be a tough year. But I know you have the character, the intellect, the patience and calm to do this job well. And I know two of our dear, dear departed friends, Ms. Ruby Rubens and Odessa Shannon, for whom we served on the African American Student Achievement Action Group, are godly proud of you today. So congratulations, and I can't wait to vote for you.
Thank you. Councilmember Don Lucky.
Thank you, Madam President. And I want to start by thanking our immediate past president, Councilmember Stewart, for leading us through this process and for explaining and re-explaining the process many, many times. You know, this is a funny kind of peculiar situation, picking your own colleague, right? And to Councilmember Katz's point, we had many, many qualified, passionate community servants who put themselves forward. And that's a beautiful luxury to have in a county with so many people who are invested and care so much about the community. And, you know, I guess there's probably no perfect process for anything, and everybody will have, as many people think something's good, somebody else is going to say, why'd you do it that way, right? That's the story of life and the story of public service. And so I just, again, want to thank all my colleagues for all the work that we've put in over the recent weeks on trying to make sure we were doing the best job we could in this caretaker capacity, as we say, of our new colleague filling Councilmember Albernaz's seat. And in thinking about Gabe and his legacy and things that he would often speak to, particularly as we headed into budget season, was talking about his prior work during the Leggett administration during the Great Recession when he first served as Recreation Director. And Gabe always spoke from the heart, both about need and reality. And he had a lot of wisdom to share with all of us. And I know later today we're going to get another budget briefing, and our new colleague is coming in hot right before we start budget season. And we are in an unprecedented time when we are being dramatically affected by the short-sighted, I hate to even call them policies, of the federal government that are being imposed upon us, that are making our landscape here incredibly challenging in terms of what resources we have and the level of need that is going to impact our community and has been already in what can only be described as the longest 11 months of any of our collective lives. And so we're going to have to be both really realistic and really pragmatic, and also doing our very best to try to make sure we are helping in the best ways we can without hurting. And that's a tough road ahead to manage that. And I know we've all, in our 3 years here, had to struggle with those things over time, and this year will be the biggest yet. And so I want to keep Gabe's wisdom and legacy in my own mind, and I hope that we all will, and we will all be available to support you in your new role and in having those conversations, which we're all going to have. So I know you're coming into a body with 10 other people who've cycled through this, but we're here for you, and we're here for that. And for those who know, my couch is always available, and our door is always open. So thank you for your stepping up to serve, and we look forward to welcoming you.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say thank you to Ms. Evans for putting her name forward. I am thrilled to second the nomination today, and thank you to your family for being willing to share her over the next little bit. As Councilmember Lukey said, we have a great deal of work ahead of us. I do also want to just very much thank everyone who applied, and Councilmember Katz talked about this very difficult situation we had, and really thinking about who to place in the seat this coming year. And I just want to very much thank particularly Riamberto and Dr. Lee for stepping forward in a very public way and putting themselves forward, because we know these jobs aren't easy, and putting yourself out there takes a lot for yourself and your families. And I just want to say thank you particularly to them, and looking forward to serving with Ms. Evans. And thank you to Madam President for getting us to this place today.
Thank you. Councilmember Lori Sells.
Thank you, Madam President, and congratulations to my friend and former school board member, Ms. Shebra Evans. I'm so excited to welcome you to the council. Even though she was a school board member for District 4, she served county-wide and was all over the county. She served during the height of the pandemic and weathered many challenges during her time on the Board of Education, and worked closely with not only the county council, but also the municipalities, and was very present in the community. I am excited for your continued public service, and I am looking forward to working with you. I cannot thank our president for ensuring a very fair and transparent process. As President Fanny Gonzalez mentioned, going from 78 candidates, 67. That's not right. 67 candidates, multiple interviews, multiple emails of residents, telling us what they thought about each candidate, and then our candidates coming and answering questions here in a public forum. It's going to be hard to fill the shoes of my good colleague. I am very excited for his next journey, and just look forward to the remainder of this year working with you. Congratulations. Thank you.
Councilmember Kristen Mink.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you again to all of the candidates. Going through this process has just made me so proud of Montgomery County. We truly have such a wealth of amazing, talented, dedicated, community-based people. It's blown me away. It's been really, really beautiful. Even just reading through all of those applications, meeting with so many people, getting to interview folks, it has really filled me with hope and with pride. And I feel so blessed to be here in Montgomery County. And I am really excited about this appointment because, Ms. Evans, I know that you are going to serve this county well for this time period. It has been clear from the start when you were called to help to build up the PTA till now that you have always been led and driven not by a desire for seats of power, but by a desire for ways to serve your fellow community members. And that is what this is all about. And I know that in every office, there are always ongoing individual constituent cases. There are ongoing efforts with different community partners. And I have every belief that you will jump in midstream with the staff in Councilmember Albornoz's office and immediately be part of that wonderful team to make sure none of that work misses a beat. So I look forward to confirming you here shortly. Thank you so much to you and your family for taking this on.
Thank you. Councilmember Marilyn Balcom.
Thank you. So I'm very thrilled to be able to vote for Ms. Shebra Evans. You will learn as a council member, one of Sidney Katz's sayings is everything has already been said this morning, but not by me. So, so we'll go. I just want to say, so I'll go on. I really am proud, as others have said, of the process. And not only did we go through this process, but we went through a change in leadership in the middle of the process. So I thank past Council President Stewart and Council President Natalie Fanny-Gonzalez for making sure that the process was fair, and also to Craig Howard for making sure that this process was that we went through the process as was laid out. And the people who, it really was an embarrassment of riches, the 67 people who, not only people who applied, but the many people who considered it. And so when we started this process, my criteria was very firm, and it stayed the same throughout the entire process. We needed someone who understood the complexities of the county. We needed somebody who thoroughly understood the budget, and we needed somebody who could hit the ground running. As soon as we get back from our recess, which the new council member won't have much of a recess, you'll be working very hard. But we'll hit the ground running as soon as we get back with very complex issues, and we needed somebody that could do all of those. And I'm confident that Shebra Evans is the right choice, so I look forward to voting for her.
Thank you. Councilmember Evan Glass.
Thank you very much, Madam President. This is a full circle day in which we are appointing the caretaker council member and also interviewing and, as we're presumptively stating what the day will occur, or what will occur today, appointing our former colleague to the Recreation Department. So it is truly a full circle day. I want to thank Council President Fanny-Gonzalez and former President Kate Stewart for your leadership during this process. I also want to express my deep appreciation to Council staff. The last time this happened was in 2013. And so there were lessons to learn, history to review, and ultimately we had a process in which 67 members of our community stepped up. And I just want to say thank you to all 67. Everybody who raised their hand contributes to our community in different ways. And so this was a good, thorough process. And Ms. Evans, I just want to say to you, I saw you no fewer than I think 4 times this weekend. And I know you have the stamina. I know you have already hit the ground running. And more broadly, these are challenging times. The upcoming budget might be the hardest we have ever faced in the last decade or so. But Ms. Evans, I know that you too have gone through challenging times, and you are battle tested, and you are ready to join this body and to look out for our community. And so I look forward to working with you, and look forward to working with all of our colleagues over the next year and what may come. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, Councilmember Andrew Friedson.
It hasn't been said by me either, so here I am. First of all, thank you so much to both our current council president and our prior council president for their leadership in navigating through what has been a challenging process. Nothing is perfect. We've received plenty of feedback, but we are ultimately landing in a place that I think serves the county and our community well. I will say that the 67 applicants, I have a lot of nieces and nephews who would have a field day with that 6-7 thing. I don't really understand it, to be totally honest with you, but I'm sure that they would have fun with it. But it is a testament, those 67 candidates, to the depth and breadth of talent that we have in Montgomery County and the interest level that we have in Montgomery County of purpose-driven people who want to serve at a really difficult time, in a really challenging moment, to be able to lift up our community when it's needed more than ever and to be a light in a dark moment. And I'm very grateful to them, and especially to Dr. Lee and Mr. Rodriguez, who put themselves out here publicly to be able to share their interest and willingness to serve our community, and hope that they and the other candidates will continue finding opportunities and ways to serve our community, because we need you and everybody now more than ever. Ms. Evans, very excited to be supporting your interest and candidacy in this position and to be welcoming you here. You'll be the person who will sit next to me, and I look forward to that very much, and to a number of walking meetings that we can continue to do as we navigate these challenging times together. I am incredibly confident that you're the right choice at an incredibly challenging time, at this defining moment for our county, for our country, for our community, as residents are struggling, as our community is challenged in a way that we've really never been challenged before. We know that you've been through challenges as a public official. We know that you are battle tested. We know that you'll do the work, that you'll engage the community, that you'll work collaboratively with colleagues as a member of this body as we navigate through the choppy waters that are ahead. The budget is going to be difficult. The policy issues are going to be challenging. The onslaught that we face from the federal dynamics are going to continue to test us and to challenge us and to require us to work together in a way that we really have never needed to before and need to now more than ever. And I know that you'll provide the thoughtful, empathetic, sober leadership that we need in this moment. So you've been a fixture here over the last several weeks, soaking in all of the information so that you can seamlessly be part of this effort as we move forward. And I'm just really excited to be able to support you and to be able to continue to serve with you in this new role. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion in a second to appoint Shebra Evans as the new at-large council member. Those in favor, please raise your hand. The motion passed unanimously. So, Ms. Evans is confirmed as a new council member. Congratulations to her. She will be sworn in. All right. She will be sworn in later today and will be hard at work this month. She's already on it. I have seen Shebra almost like at least 5 days for the past weekly. So, and she will be joining us on this dais at the next meeting on January 13, okay? With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I also have an announcement to make on committee assignments. As you all know, it's the council presidents that assigns new committees assignments, and since we have a new council member coming in, after consulting with several of you, I have decided that there is no better person to lead the Health and Human Services Committee as its new chair than Council Member Lori-Ann Sells. I think, as you all know, Lori-Ann joined the HHS committee back in 2022 when all the women here joined the county council, and she has been the lead to address disparities in public health, and she has done an incredible job, and I know that Lori-Ann Sells will make us proud as the new chair of the HHS committee. With that, I also would like to announce that I am moving Councilmember Andrew Fritzen from the GO committee to the HHS committee, which means that our future council member, I say future because she has to be sworn in this afternoon, okay? Shara Evans, she will be going to the GO committee, which I think she'll be great there. And she will serve on the Education and Culture Committee, which I think she will be fabulous there. So, that's the committee announcement. And thank you for that. And we're going to be moving forward. We have item number 2 on the agenda. Is another exciting one. And it's the interview of the county executive's nominee for director, Department of Recreation, Mr. Gabriel Albornoz, known as Gabe. He is coming along with Mr. Madeleno. And we have a series of questions, and I'm going to kick us off. But before I do that, I am going to say that I have never worked with the rec department as much as I have done since I joined this county council. And the people who work in the Department of Recreation are splendid. They're magnificent. Adrian has been the acting director for a while, since, I would say, for almost a year at this point, less than that, 6 months. I don't know, it feels like a year to me. 6 months. And she has done an incredible job. I have seen her everywhere. So if you get disappointment, Mr. Albornoz, because nothing is done until it's done, at least on my book, you're going to have an incredible team. I know you used to have this job many years ago, but the agency has evolved, and I think you're going to be in good company. And I trust that if you get appointed, you're going to have really good people around you, making this county such an amazing place to live. With that, I'm going to start by asking you a few questions. So the first one is the mission of the department. Well, you want to go? Okay, go, Rich. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam President, Madam Vice President, members of the County Council. First of all, Madam President and Madam Vice President, congratulations on your new roles. It's my first time to be before you, and very much look forward to working with you. The entire executive branch looks forward to working with you as we meet the challenges of the next year. And of course, as someone who's known Ms. Evans for a very long time, we're very excited to be working with Shebra as a council member, and the county executive offers his congratulations to her and looks forward to working with her as well. I know all of you know Gabe Albornoz. Just in case for people in the community who don't know Gabe Albornoz and his record beyond just being a council member for the last 7 years, Gabe spent the entire Leggett administration, all 12 years, as director of the Department of Recreation. So he knows the department. He has spent years before that working in advocacy within the community. He grew up here. He's a graduate of the University of Maryland, a graduate at Johns Hopkins, the great Maryland combination, lives in the Kensington area with his wife and 4 children. But one of the things that excited the county executive most about this opportunity when Mr. Albornoz came forward is his background, knowing the department, but also the years he has spent on the county council. He has learned so much about the rest of the county government, so much of the rest of the council, so much of the rest of the county, and his desire to make sure he can build those relationships and collaboration across the county government and into so much of the rest of the community, including MCPS, to provide great services to our young people, to adults, to seniors, to everyone that the rec department touches. So I think we have a unique opportunity with Mr. Albornoz to lead this department at a time when building greater relationships, building efficiencies, maximizing opportunities to work together is so important, which is why the county executive is so proud to present him to all of you and respectfully ask for your favorable confirmation of Gabe Albornoz as our rec director. And I second everything you said about Adrian Clutter's leadership. You know, this department has had outstanding leadership with Robin Riley, with Adrian, with many people who have spent their years dedicated to recreation and community service. And we are fortunate to have another wonderful leader who will keep that tradition up. So thank you very much, Madam President, for that opportunity to provide some introductory comments to a candidate that I know you all know well.
Thank you, Mr. Madaleno. We're going to start with the first question. The mission of the Department of Recreation is to provide high-quality, diverse, and accessible programs, services, and facilities that enhance the quality of life for all ages, cultures, and abilities. Please share how your leadership will support the mission and ongoing work of the department.
Thank you, Madam President, and good morning, good people. It is great to see all of you this morning. So for the record, I'm Gabe Albornoz, currently a part-time driver and personal chef to 4 children in Kensington, Maryland. And it is truly a privilege and honor to be before all of you this morning. I want to take a point of privilege and congratulate Ms. Evans on today's appointment. I'll just say a couple of things. One, she is going to be in fantastic hands. And I've known Ms. Evans for a number of years, just as all of you have. I know her work commitment, her ethics, her heart, and she's going to be an outstanding member of this body this year. And thank you, Madam President, Council Vice President Balcom, and all of my esteemed colleagues on the council. This must be what it feels like when a professional athlete is traded in the middle of a season and goes back to play in his old home court. But it is truly a privilege to be with all of you today. And I appreciate also very much your comments, Council President, because Ms. Clutter has done an outstanding job, not just as an acting director this last 6 months, but in her entire tenure at the Department of Recreation and before that as a professional in the Park and Planning Commission. I'll start with a quick story to provide some context on why I'm so excited about leading what I think is one of the most important departments and agencies this side of the moon. When in 2009, when we were going through those very difficult budget times, there was an event that was held at the Holiday Park Senior Center, and it was a senior prom. It was a partnership between the students at Blair High School and the participants at Holiday Park. And the men were dressed in suits, and the women were dressed in prom dresses. There were boutonnieres, flowers, and a great DJ spinning tunes from the 40s and 50s. And when I got there, there was somebody who was very emotional and came up to me. And after I was introduced as the director of the Recreation Department, she said, "Thank you." And I said, "For what?" And she said, "That was the first time I danced, and my husband used to love to dance since he passed away 5 years ago." And that for me encompassed just how important and valuable the services that the Department of Recreation provides. It creates a time and space for people to come together. It provides services that enhance the quality of life of our residents, both their physical and mental health. And our community recreation centers' emphasis on community really do provide a gathering space for people and especially help take care of our most vulnerable populations. And if afforded this opportunity, I will continue the long-lasting legacy of this great agency by ensuring that we are using all of our resources to provide support for our staff, for our community, that we establish strategic plans both at the program and overall operational level, that we partner with sister county agencies and nonprofit organizations and our community itself to leverage the great resources and staff of the department to expand our reach and go deeper than we ever have before. I know that through the establishment of nationally recognized programs such as Excel Beyond the Bell and TeamWorks, there's a strong foundation, but there's much more to do, as you all know. And I personally know that each of you is deeply committed to the work of the department and the populations it serves. And so I will continue that legacy and work tirelessly to both lead the department, be an advocate, and be a bridge builder, as Mr. Madaleno mentioned. And I do want to close this first question by acknowledging the county executive and our CAO and thanking them for my nomination and the opportunity to work with them over the next several months and years.
Thank you. Second question, how do you plan to use research and data to inform the delivery of recreation services?
So we need to use both quantitative and qualitative, both on the front end and the back end. On the front end, we need to provide surveys. We need to engage our public to find out what their interests and needs are at the community level. And we need to authentically engage those communities year-round, not just during the budget season, but year-round, to find out what those interests are and expand and establish programs that meet those unique interests. And then on the back end, we have to make sure we're tracking the success of our programs. And it can't just be about participation We also have to track outcomes and see if these programs or services are meeting the needs of those residents, moving the needle forward, and achieving what we are trying to achieve through those programs and services. Now, having said that, it's hard to track emotion. And so when I go back to the example I used of the senior citizen that participated in that very important program, we'll see that she came, we'll do a survey to know that she enjoyed herself, but it'll be impossible to track how deeply meaningful that particular moment was to her and to the youth that was paired with her and was dancing with her. But we know that work's important, and we will ensure that we do everything possible to tell that story because it's an important story to tell.
Thank you for that answer. Third question, how can the county increase partnerships with a nonprofit and private sectors to expand offerings, particularly to reach at-risk youth, seniors, and people with developmental and/or physical disabilities? What are your observations about services trends in these areas?
Well, thank you for that question, President Fanny Gonzalez. And I smiled when I read it because I do go back and remember those very difficult times when our department's operating budget was cut cumulatively over 3 fiscal years by over a third. And we literally had just enough money to keep the lights on in buildings. But what we were able to accomplish was through partnerships and alliances, we did establish Excel Beyond the Bell, and we had these magnificent facilities that we couldn't program ourselves, but we could, through different programs and partnerships and alliances, extend and leverage the reach of the department. We also know that as county government officials, it's often our nonprofit and community-based organizations that can go deeper into communities than the government can on its own, to help people be informed about programs and services that are available to them, to let them know about the scholarship opportunities to help offset the costs of participating in summer camps. And so we have to leverage those partnerships in order to round out our programs and provide the holistic approach. And the last example I'll give as one of many examples that the department currently does is the Soccer for Change program, which is a partnership with multiple nonprofit organizations and municipalities that help recruit teams, and the recreation department helps includes book the space, the refs. We create the time and space, but then partner with different nonprofits to actually carry out the league itself and create a meaningful sports opportunity that many of these kids otherwise would not have. And so those are many ways and more that we'll need to leverage partnerships moving forward, because as has been noted and we all know, the next several years will be very difficult.
Great. Fourth question. If appointed, how would you utilize your position to ensure that racial equity and social justice is intertwined into work such as capital and operational budget planning and programming initiatives for the Department of Recreation?
So I'm super proud, and I know all of you are as well, in playing a small role in that question even being asked. And I'm so proud at this moment in our country's history that we are asking that question, and we will continue to ask that question because it demands an answer. And the Recreation Department, the staff who are amazing, and many of which I had the opportunity to be online to bring on board, and I look forward to getting to know the new staff if I'm appointed, really does reflect the diversity of the communities that we serve in a myriad of different ways. And our department helps serve generations of county residents from multiple backgrounds, and it's incumbent upon us, and it's on our responsibility as a department and as a government to provide services that meet communities where they are, to help make sure they feel seen and heard and supported and loved. And that's what the department has done for many years, and we will continue to do moving forward. We will do that through those surveys, through that community engagement, to ensure we're meeting the community where they are. That also transcends to the staff. We know that people's different lived, work, and professional experience means they absorb information in different ways. They hear things in different ways. They experience things in different ways, particularly communities and people that come from marginalized communities. And so it's important for us to be intentional about ensuring we are authentically engaging our staff, providing with them support, and creating a space and time to listen to their interests, their concerns, but also the opportunities and the ideas that they bring. And I will do everything possible in working not just with the staff of the department, whom I have a great deal of respect for, but our union leadership as well, who have done a great job for many years representing the department and its employees.
Thank you so much. The last question is a yes or no question. Are there any potential conflicts of interest of which we should be aware?
No.
Thank you so much. I'm going to open it up for colleagues to answer questions. I'm going to start with Councilmember Will Jawando.
Thank you, Madam President. Former Councilmember Albornoz, Gabe. Really, really happy to see you personally go back to the place that you love. I will be voting for you. I won't bury the lead on that. But I do have a couple of questions and charges, and if you answer these appropriately, then you get my vote. You have a really unique perspective at a unique time in human history here. You've run the department for 12 years. You went through the Great Recession. You've served as chair of HHS. You and I personally, as chair of the Education Culture Committee, have collaborated on a ton of things dealing with kids, out of school time being one. Your last committee session was about out of school time. Could you talk to me a little bit about, with all that experience, you're going to have to navigate the day-to-day issues, the contract management, track outcomes. You talked about that, and I know you'll do that well. But what do you see as kind of the opportunity to take what you've learned here, and since you've been director, to dream big about what the recreation department can be and should be, even in these challenging times? And how are you thinking about that?
Well, I appreciate that question. Thank you so much. And I should have mentioned, too, I was a recreation kid. Growing up, I was very active in our recreation centers, and it was a safe place for me to be able to go after school, and a critical resource for a lot of our residents, in particular our children, youth, and families. So I am so excited about going back, not just to lead an agency, but to take what I've learned the last 7 years. You all have heard me say this before, but we all can't do everything, but each of us can do something. And I've learned that we can do more when we work collaboratively and together. And so we are currently in approximately 18 Title I schools for Excel Beyond the Bell, and there's no reason why we shouldn't be in all of them. We need to phase that in appropriately and responsibly, but that's the kind of service that our community needs and demands. But to do that, we have to work with our foundations, we have to work with other nonprofit organizations, and of course we have to continue to partner with our school system in a very holistic way. We also know that the fastest demographic here in Montgomery County is our aging population. And we have to ensure that we currently, as I've heard from my colleagues in the Recreation Department, have waiting lists in virtually every senior program right now. And in the next 7 years, there will be more people over the age of 75 than under the age of 18 residing here in Montgomery County. And so that presents a unique opportunity for us to expand programs and services that the department's not going to be able to do on its own. And the other thing that I would mention, and Council President Fanny Gonzalez mentioned this, but our disability community is also a community that desperately needs more support and services. And that doesn't just include the participants, but the families of those participants, to be able to provide authentic respite care for those families. And we have, as you all know, hundreds of amazing nonprofit organizations whose missions perfectly align with the department. And I look forward to leveraging that expertise and expanding what we do.
I appreciate that. Look forward to partnering with you on all three of those priorities, which you know I care about deeply. Congratulations again. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilmember Evan Glass.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Albornoz, nice to see you. Well, it's a formal interview.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Gabe. I think Councilmember Jawando asked the most relevant question here, and it is how your 7 years of service on the council will help inform your continued service in the executive department, building upon the 12 years as director, 7 years as council member, and charting these waters, which are rocky, right? But the response that you provided is a thorough, visionary response, recognizing the realities on the ground, that we do have an aging population. We do have challenges meeting the existing needs, and yet we still have to plan for the future. And that is not only a capital budget problem, that is a operating budget problem, and it is also one that requires partnership and collaboration across the street. You might be the preeminent ambassador across Maryland Avenue to make sure that these relationships and this vision gets forged. And so I look forward to continuing to work with you. Appreciate your continued service, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Councilmember Kate Stewart.
Great. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for all you've done. And I want to echo my colleagues' comments regarding the outstanding staff we have in the rec department. And I look forward to seeing you back at the helm there. My question builds on some of the questions the council president has asked, but I want to go a bit deeper. We do have outstanding staff in our rec department, also in other county departments like our libraries. Director Graham is doing a stellar job. And sometimes not everyone communicates on things. And so one of the things I'd like to hear from you, as you've experienced this being over here on this side, is when we're thinking about all our different services for our community and our county agencies, how are you going to approach to make sure that we continue to serve our community, particularly those who may not always be recipients of a great deal of our services here in the county? And specifically, I'll just give an example that's come up recently, is in the Long Branch community. Again, Director Graham is doing a phenomenal job, and she has been very open to hearing about concerns. But when it was announced that we would be cutting the Sunday hours, it was not recognized that the community center is also closed on Sunday in the Long Branch area. And so that leaves a community that is mostly folks who live in multifamily buildings without easy access to a public space, particularly many of our young people. And both our community center there and our library are such cherished assets. To have both closed on a Sunday is difficult. And I know, again, Director Graham is looking into this. She has been incredibly receptive to rethinking what's possible there. But how do we avoid this in the future? And as you step into the role as Director of Recreation, how do you plan on working with other county agencies to make sure our communities are served?
Well, thank you very much, Councilmember Stewart, and thank you for your term as Council President. As I said when I left, you did an outstanding job, and you really did. So I'll answer that two different ways. One, we've been here before, sadly, and the example that you have given is a little bit of the canary in the coal mine, because difficult decisions by departments and agencies are going to have to be made over the next several years to reflect the budget realities. But we can't make those decisions in a vacuum. We have to work collaboratively together. And we run large agencies, and sometimes it's a little bit out of sight, out of mind, and we have to make it our business. And I know Director Graham does, in making sure that we think holistically about significant policy decisions that we may be making as individual agencies. During the time of the recession, we very much changed the budget planning process. And what we did for 3 consecutive fiscal years was we broke it up into service categories. So, for example, the agencies that most directly worked with our seniors collaboratively put their budgets together, because we knew that reductions were going to have to be made, but we wanted to make sure we minimized those reductions and the impact on the community. And so we're going to have to approach things the same way moving forward, operational from a practical standpoint, but we're also going to have to think programmatically and holistically. But we don't just have to play defense. We can play offense too. And one of the things I look forward to doing, and Acting Director Clutter and Robin before her continued this tradition of the department, I don't plan, and this is in a good way, of completely staying in my lane. I want to make sure that I'm in many different conversations regarding the constituents that we serve as a department and agency to make sure that we're providing a holistic and well-rounded view of how to support those populations. But one of the first orders of business will be looking into this issue. And I will also say the department is still at the pre-recession levels in terms of its hours of operation at facilities. It's improved some, but not enough. And so those are examples of where we need to bring back some of those hours where possible to meet the needs of the community, which obviously has a budget impact, but the pros often outweigh the cons when you do something like that.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Don Lukey.
Thank you. Thank you, and welcome, Gabe. And it feels really weird being here and seeing you there, but also heartwarming because I know this is where you belong, and I know how much it means. And you didn't say, you said you were a chef and a driver and everything else in these weeks, but I also know you're a coach. Mm-hmm. And I know that both you and I have four kids apiece and a small army of athletes and artists. And I know that when we were taking some of the youth in my district who are looking for more recreational opportunities and other opportunities in the Montgomery Village area, and we were up at Damascus, one of the boys, because there was a keyboard, I believe, in there, and he plays the piano, but he doesn't have a piano. And sometimes people lose sight of the other things that are happening in the rec centers that aren't, pickleball. Mm-hmm. And the other things that happen in there that are arts focused or STEAM or other ways to connect people and to connect youth and seniors who can work together. And thank you so much for sharing the story about the senior prom. I think a couple we were looking at each other like, we'd like to do that. That would be great. That would be wonderful. And so I just finished a series of town halls on public safety. And I think one of the things that always shocks people is that the first slide I show talks about recreation and public safety being not just what people think of as our public safety agencies, but it included recreation and DHHS. And so I wanted you to be able to speak to that in terms of, as you just mentioned, in response to Councilmember Stewart's comments and questions, that sort of holistic view. And now, having had this additional experience of service on this body, going back, how does that fit into and tie into our public safety and our HHS overall landscape with recreation?
Great question. So Councilmember Katz will remember this well because we served on the Blue Ribbon Commission together at the time. But when the county was experiencing the gang activity of the early 2000s with unprecedented levels of violence that the county had never seen before, a strategy was established that was prevention, intervention, and suppression to address the issue at the time. Now, we evolved in a very positive way to focus more on the prevention side. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, it was actually former police director Tom Manger that advocated more forcefully than anybody else about the Department of Recreation's budget, because he told the council at the time, if you cut his budget, you might as well increase mine, because that's what's going to happen.
Right.
So recreation plays a critical role in providing support for our children and youth, particularly our youth, safe places for them to be able to go and play, a caring adult for them to be able to interact with and ask them how their day was, and an advocate who can connect them to other programs and services that they may need and may not know about. Any caring adult, no matter what position they're in, can make a significant impact on the life of a child. It just so happens that that's our work.
Right.
And so it also cuts both ways in dealing with other vulnerable populations, because we know many of our seniors are being exploited and are looking for somebody to turn to get help. And it's often the staff at our senior centers and our recreation facilities that they turn to, because these are people that they know, names of people that they're familiar with.
Right.
And so it's incumbent upon us to be that bridge and to be able to provide that service and partner with our sister county agencies in public safety to be able to educate and connect to our community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Andrew Fritzen.
I'm reminded of when I was an intern in Capitol Hill and Colin Powell talked to a group of congressional interns and talked about how he had to choose between the title of secretary and the title of general, and he chose to continue to be general versus secretary. He felt that general was a title that he had earned, whereas secretary was a title that he was given. You're going to have to choose whether you want to be Councilmember Albernaz or Director Albernaz. Again, I'll leave it to you to mull that over. But to most people, I think you'll be, as you always have been, is Gabe, which I think speaks to your connection to the community and to the work and to the staff and to the team, which we all very much appreciate and looking forward for you to be in this role, which I enthusiastically support. You started to touch on this. I just wanted to dig a little bit deeper into it. It's really full circle for you going back to this role, not just because of the job and because of the team members, many of whom are still there, but because we're entering a similar moment to the one that you really had to navigate through before. And if anything, that moment might be more challenging. One, I think the challenges that we're facing from a fiscal and economic standpoint are going to be more difficult than the ones that the Great Recession presented, and those were challenging enough. But also, as you noted, the cushion that had been there still has not been returned, so to speak, and so you're going to have fewer options and opportunities to address some of those challenges because you already used some of your tricks, so to speak, and leveraged some of the opportunities that you had, and you can only go to the well so much to solve some of these challenges without having direct service cuts and without having impacts on the team members who are providing those services. I just wanted you to take an opportunity to talk about what you learned from the last time going through these challenges in this role, and how you would approach some of these issues, some of which we don't exactly know yet, but many of which we can see what's coming and have to be prepared for.
I appreciate that. So there's no perfect way of doing it, but the way that we did it then was we created layers. So layer one was identifying the most vulnerable of the populations that we serve that had the least resources available to them that the department was providing. That became our highest priority. When I first started at Recreation, we had an after-school program in every middle school in the county. And when we had to make those drastic budget reductions, we prioritized programming in the Title I schools for obvious reasons because those students had fewer resources available to them. So that's step one, is identifying who's going to be the most impacted by any potential reductions. Step two is how can we find other potential funding sources? How can we leverage what the department's doing and see what else is out there? Is there a community-based organization that already has the operating budget to do similar work? Is there a foundation that might be interested in helping to underwrite the cost in the expansion of a program or service? What can we do to find other resources? The third layer is tracking outcomes and seeing what has and hasn't worked, what is and isn't being served, and then deciding and making the difficult decision, because every program has a constituency. Just some are larger than others. And so that's the third thing that you have to do. And the last thing is you have to take the long view. Maybe you have to take a step back and put a pause on a program or service or scale it back in a way that you'd otherwise would not be able to want to do. But you use that time and that pause to make the program stronger, to reinforce it, so that when times do improve, you can expand that program and make sure it's meeting the full need. And Excel Beyond the Bell is a good example of that.
Well, speaking of Excel Beyond the Bell, I just wanted to acknowledge and congratulate you again for the action in Montgomery. award that you received over the weekend. It's well deserved, largely for the work that you did in helping to launch that program in your previous iteration in this role, and just want to acknowledge and thank you for that, and look forward to your continued service in this capacity and our continued partnership and friendship. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Councilmember Lori-Ann Sales.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Albornoz. So thank you again for putting yourself forth for this position. I have no doubt you will do well, as we are approaching a pretty challenging budget year, that you're no stranger to a challenging budget. Also knowing our community centers are safe havens and hubs for our residents in need. What are the top 3 things you will protect in the next year to keep our centers open, safe, and accessible? And what would you reduce or defer if funding falls short?
Well, first of all, congratulations on being appointed chair of HHS. You are also in great hands, Councilmember Sales, or Chair Sales, and you're going to do a fabulous job, I know. And I'm only a phone call away, so please don't hesitate to reach out. It's a very good and fair question. I won't be able to, at this very moment, provide you with the complete response, but I'll speak at a higher level, and then in a couple of months, I'll be able to be a little bit more specific and a lot more specific. The first is, like all county agencies, especially the front-facing agencies, we have aging buildings. So about a third of the county's recreation facilities did not start out as recreation facilities. They were former schools or other county buildings that were essentially created, that made into recreation centers, and they're aging, and they are showing their age. We also are very hard on the use, as you all know. And so the PLAR funds, the Planned Life Cycle Asset and Renewal Funds, is a constant battle that the department is trying to face every year, replacing equipment that is well used. I'll never forget when President Obama's daughter participated in one of our basketball programs, and he was a coach. He came to the Lawton Community Center, and he said, boy, this facility, he said it very diplomatically, he said, it looks very well used and could certainly stand a renovation. So one of the priorities will be assessing the status of our facilities and what needs to be upgraded or changed, because we're going through a CIP cycle, and so we'll need to think through that. Second is, how do we expand programs and services that are meeting our most vulnerable populations? And I've shared this publicly. A deep concern that I know you all have as well is that over the next several years, our teens are going to have a harder time finding jobs, because many of the frontline retail and jobs in restaurants that normally would have gone to teenagers will be going to people who are unemployed. And so that's a generational impact, because I know my first job was working as a camp counselor, and then I worked at a restaurant. The skills that I learned in those jobs transcend to this day. And the lack of those opportunities is going to impact our kids. And so we have to expand our youth employment programs and services for kids and actually create those jobs ourselves when they're not available in other spaces, and expand on TeenWorks. So those are just some examples. And in terms of what's being let go, you know, as I remember former Director Riley saying, it's hard to get blood from a turnip. The department does a really great job, I will say, in doing its an assessment of operations. There are very few examples of programs that aren't meeting some important need or interest. But obviously, we're going to have to make tough choices and prioritize. And I'm not afraid of doing that, and we will be doing that collaboratively together. And I will say with the council's support, because you all have a perspective that's important. You see things, you hear things, you feel things. And so I do look forward to being that bridge and being that partner in carrying out our services.
Thank you. I look forward to confirming your appointment. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cindy Katz.
Thank you, Madam President. You know, Gabe, this first hour has been all about you.
I know, yeah.
I just think it should be noted on this.
Yeah.
And as sorry as I was that you resigned, and I always blame it on me because you sat right here, and that's why you quit. But yeah, and be careful, yeah. And of course, we're all looking forward to working with Shebra. And the county executive has nominated many fine people to be the heads of the various departments, and we are so very fortunate. But no one could be more uniquely qualified for a department head than you. And I'm going to listen to my own advice. I'm not going to repeat what's been said, even though it hadn't been said by me. And I just want to say very publicly, I look forward to voting for you. Thank you.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Councilmember Marilyn Balcom.
Thank you. And this has been a full circle moment. I met you as the director of the rec department, and we worked together before then. And so I just want to say that, you know, one of my issues, of course, is geographic representation, and I feel that we are in very good hands. Not only, I think the rec department, like the libraries or schools, you're in every single corner of Montgomery County, and you know the community so well, and your years as an at-large member just underscored that. So, you know that you'll be hearing from me when we get to the budget, and I just want to say I really look forward to voting for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And one more, Councilmember Kristen Mink.
And along those same lines, I too look forward to working with you in this capacity. And I'll just note that, the rec department, as well as my teammates up here, including yourself when you're here, we are really working towards making up for lost time in the past to bring equity, to bring resources into the East County. And I know that that has been a focus of both the executive branch and of our branch. And obviously that's going to continue to be my focus. And we've had many conversations about that. So I know you are very well aware and well attuned and have been supportive of that. And I'm glad that we're going to have you over there. I know that you'll have eyes on that. We need programming in our rec centers. We need programming in our schools. We need destinations, all of those pieces, that we need to work on bringing more up to the East County. So I look forward to working with you on that in this capacity.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you both for being here today. Action on this appointment is scheduled to take place later this afternoon, so look forward to that. With that, we're going to move on to item number 3. It's the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? Moved by Council Vice President Balcom, second by Councilmember Sales. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries. Then we're going to sit now as the District Council. The first item for the District Council's consideration is action on a resolution to confirm the county executive's appointments to the Sign Review Board, Jessica Lettingham and Clifford Moy. The District Council is required to confirm the county executive's appointments to the Sign Review Board. Is there a motion? Moved by Councilmember Fritzen.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Lukey. Those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes. Next, we're gonna go to action on, very exciting, the University Boulevard Corridor Plan. I'm gonna ask Councilmember Andrew Fritzen, who's the chair of the PHP committee, in case he has any comments before I pass it along to staff.
No comments. We can pass along to staff.
Okay, Ms. Pam Don.
Good morning, Council. So today before you is action on the University Boulevard Corridor Plan. It is the final vote. You have before you the resolution. It's in the staff report, and you have an addendum which adds just a handful more edits, basically to a table 2 on the section on the capital improvements program. There is always language in our resolutions that allow for planning staff, as they make all of the changes that the council requests to the planning board's draft, to change tables, figures, maps, graphs, everything to be consistent with the council's decisions. We don't always go in and change every table in the resolution, but there was some confusion by some of our residents about this, so we've added an addendum that changes the text in this table for you today as well. So that's my summary.
Okay, so I think, is everybody ready to vote? Okay, do you have a comment? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank council staff's work on this. I know it's always a big effort. Thank planning and residents who have spent a lot of time advocating around this plan. I've shared my views in depth throughout the process on committee, but I just wanted to make a couple of very high-level quick points. Montgomery County, we need to be thinking about how to build more affordable housing and put in place displacement protections. That's something that came in clear, loud and clear out of this plan for me. We have to have a lot of thought of that going forward. We want redevelopment, but we want to make sure we protect our communities so that they're not pushed out. That's why I'm voting against the plan. It doesn't have that. Second, we spent months putting through a change to zoning in a previous ETA that this will now augment. I think it's given whiplash to a lot of our members of our community trying to figure out the rules, and it's not good for our trust. Third, residents have been frustrated with this, thousands of residents, and they haven't felt heard throughout the process. We have to make sure that we improve that it's real meaningful engagement where changes are made. And then finally, on a good note, because I want to end on a good note, we have to work with DOT and planning in our community to implement some of the very needed pedestrian safety changes in this plan. And I want to thank folks for working on that. But we know that redevelopment's not going to happen overnight, so we need to urgently move some of those things forward as quickly as possible. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilmember Lori Sells.
Thank you, Madam President. I sent over a very minor amendment regarding the plan. We already approved the straw vote. The amendment is simply asking for some transparency and accountability to ensure that residents' concerns are addressed, keeping in line with the 5-year reporting period, which I recommend starts in 2026 to 2031. We would add affordable and market race housing units produced to the racial equity and social justice metrics to be tracked and reported every 5 years. This is on page 143 of the plan, page 19 through 20 of the packet. And this is keeping in line with ensuring that we keep the lines of communication open to the community, and hope I have the support of my colleagues.
We have a motion from Councilmember Lori Sells. I think it's fabulous, but I can now move it because I'm the president. So I said second by Stewart. All in favor, please raise your hands. Motion carries. I don't see anybody else who would like to speak, but I do before we call on a vote. Look, I am so proud of this sector plan. It's the first corridor plan after Thrive 2050 that I proudly worked on. Dealing with a housing crisis is not a talking point. You got to take action and very difficult decisions. That's how we move forward. You don't just play the politics. You got to take action. And taking action is what we're doing here today. This plan not only increases density, very low density, I had to say. Also, it gives protections for people to walk, bike, roll and drive on University Boulevard, which is one of the most dangerous places in the state of Maryland, a place where thousands of people actually ride on the bus on University Boulevard. And I think it's our duty as elected officials to look forward and take decisions, not just for what's happening today, but for the future generation, and giving opportunity to people to live in this area. I am proud to have placed workforce housing as part of this plan with Councilmember Andrew Fritzen. It's not just okay to say we need more. If you're gonna make a claim that we need to do X, Y, and Z, then you have to put it on paper and move it forward so we can vote on it. Not just a general remark without anything in writing to take action. That is irresponsible. So with that, I'm gonna call my colleagues to please, those in favor of the University Boulevard Corridor Plan as amended today with the last change by Councilmember Lori Sells that we all agreed on, please raise your hand. So I'm counting for 4B. No, to amend the whole plan.
Oh, because there was another amendment that I had.
That's later.
The overlay?
That's the overlay. That's something else. Okay, second thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in favor. Those opposed, please raise your hand. 3 opposed. And with that, the motion carries and this plan is approved. Moving on. Oh, right, 3, because we don't have the upcoming council members. So I said 7 in favor. No, I said it fine. I said it fine. I do math. I may not be great when I speak, but I do math. So next for the district council's consideration is item C. Action on the zoning text amendment 2512 overlay zone, University Boulevard overlay zone. The Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee recommends enactment with amendments. I'm going to call on the chair of the PHP committee, Chair Fritzen, for any comments before I pass it to the staff.
Yeah, just really briefly, the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee recommends approval 2-1. Councilmember Jawando opposed of ZTA 2512 with amendments. Ultimately, this is the implementation of the plan through the overlay zone. We did include the workforce housing element to this. This is where it actually was implemented, as you, Madam President, had aforementioned. Previously, we recommended approval with amendments, including changing lot coverage to site coverage, clarifying that the reference for duplex standard is for duplex side, and codifying the MPDU requirement in the plan area in addition to the workforce housing requirement that we included. I will turn it over to Ms. Nadeau, and also wanted to note after Ms. Nadeau goes through her dynamic that we had spoken about it previously. There wasn't a formal proposal before us, but Councilmember Mink has an additional amendment regarding the grandfathering of autocentric uses, which is available in the packet as well, and we'll get to that after Ms. Nadeau. And I'll yield back.
I have nothing to add. Thank you for that summary. So we can discuss Councilmember Mink's amendment.
Councilmember Mink.
All right, great. Thanks, everybody. So as previously discussed, my office worked with some of our small businesses in Four Corners that'll be impacted by the overlay zone, making autocentric uses non-conforming. And so thank you to Ms. Nadeau for helping us to craft this amendment to make sure that we don't have unintended side effects that negatively impact our existing businesses' ability to thrive. So it allows for just a little bit of flexibility for small buildings to expand, and only by 20% to allow for renovations, repairs, and reconstruction. It does not apply to parts of the property that are autocentric uses. So it would not allow, gas stations to expand their pumps or drive-through restaurants to expand their drive-throughs. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Nadeau to add any more, a little more about the details, and then I'll make a motion to move the amendment.
Sure. So backtracking slightly, this amendment grandfathers the existing non-conforming uses. As a little bit of background, because there's been some questions about this. The reason this is needed is non-conforming uses are a standard zoning measure, particularly in a master plan like this, where you have uses you've decided you don't want in that area anymore, but you want them to retain their property rights. So they're not allowed to expand. They can continue to exist based on testimony due to requests about the right-of-way changing and changes in the plan area. Some of these businesses wanted a little more flexibility. As noted, the amendment specifically says building, so only the building itself could expand, and only if it's under 2,500 square feet, so smaller buildings. And then there's also some room for reconfiguring for right-of-way acquisitions or modernization. That language is included just so it's clear to DPS how those non-conforming uses will work. And then lastly, there is language about not needing to increase their off-street parking requirement if the square footage changes due to shifts in the right-of-way, which is also consistent with the plan being less autocentric. So that amendment is there for you on page 9.
All right, so I will move that we add that language to the overlay.
Moved by Councilmember Mink, second by Councilmember Jawando. All those in favor, please raise your hand. It's unanimous. we have Councilmember Lori Sells with a question.
Thank you, Madam President. I just had a question about the breakdown of affordable homes that we can expect in the corridor for this plan.
A breakdown is in the exact number of affordable homes, or on what the requirement will be?
What the requirement and whatever the forecasted numbers on affordable homes. There's a lot of concerns around displacement of, market rate housing and displacement of Black and brown residents, and just want to clarify those numbers.
I'm going to ask the Planning Department to please answer that question. Very important question from Councilmember Lori Sells.
Lisa Gavoni, Planning Supervisor, Montgomery Planning, for the record. So in terms of forecasting, we don't know what will happen in terms of development or redevelopment, so that's a tricky question to answer. I can say that this plan has a 15% MPDU requirement, which is 2.5% above the standard county rate. So there is an increased affordable housing requirement in this plan area. There's also language in the plan to strive for no net loss of affordable housing. When an application comes into redevelopment, we will work with the Department of Housing and Community Affairs to see what we can do, but it's not a guarantee of no net loss or preservation, but it will be. It's just standard language that we include so that we can negotiate for that when redevelopment occurs.
Something I can add as well, agreeing that it is hard to forecast because we never know exactly how many units we'll get. Since this was asked with ZTA 2502 as well, there is the workforce housing requirement, and then in addition, the MPDU requirement. They do not cancel each other out. So if you build enough units where you trigger the MPDU, you'll have to do your MPDU requirement, and then in addition, do the workforce housing requirement, which of course will also increase affordability for the bigger projects.
Good morning. For the record, Jessica McVeary with the East County Planning Division. And thank you for that question. In addition to the comments that have already been provided, I did want to note that in the implementation chapter of the recently approved plan, we do also prioritize the public benefits that are focused on housing, and that's included on pages 146 and 147 of the planning board draft, and that includes sort of going beyond the 15% MPDU requirement, as well as providing larger family size units. And so I just wanted to make sure that we also added in that those are the priorities for public benefits.
Okay, because I just remember we had a chart on that we looked over while we were doing the discussion, and there was one plan that called for a certain number of homes versus another one.
Okay, go ahead.
Just so, because I know what you're talking about, because I've raised that. It was the chart that decided, do you change the single family zoning or not? And there was, if you didn't, which is what I proposed, you had a certain number of yield units, if you guys remember that. And then if you proposed doing what Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez wanted to do, there was this, and there were three options.
Yes.
And they were all pretty close, but that was, I think that's what you're thinking of.
Yes.
Are you referring to the chart on Circle 48?
Yes, I believe so.
So one of the benefits of doing a corridor plan, like University Boulevard corridor plan, is it does prioritize the production of more housing too. That's one of the goals of the plan, is to increase the number of affordable housing, but also just the number of housing units overall. And the council in the adopted plan really prioritized that. So that's also part of the housing goals of the plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't see any more requests to speak. So at this point, is there a motion to approve? Are you done, Ms. Lee? Are you?
I am done.
Just making sure.
Yes, so I'll turn it over to the clerk.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve zoning text amendment 2512 as amended? Moved by Councilmember Andrew Friedson, second. second by Council Vice President Balcom. This is a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Lukey?
Yes.
Councilmember Lukey votes yes. Councilmember Mink?
Yes.
Councilmember Mink votes yes. Councilmember Sales?
Yes.
Councilmember Sales votes yes. Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart votes yes. Councilmember Glass? Yes. Councilmember Glass votes yes. Councilmember Katz?
No.
Councilmember Katz votes no. Councilmember Friesen?
Yes.
Councilmember Friesen votes yes. Councilmember Jawando?
No.
Councilmember Jawando votes no. Councilmember Balcom?
Yes.
Councilmember Balcom votes yes. Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez votes yes.
So this motion passes 9-1. Easy? 8-2. There you go. Oh, that's right. I missed you. Yeah, no comments. Thank you so much. We're gonna move on, everyone. We're gonna go to item 4. This is the last item for the District Council. Is action on the zoning text amendment 2513, omnibus revisions, clarifications, and corrections. The Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee recommends enactment with amendments. I'm gonna pass this to Council. What happened?
I'm so sorry. I need to change my vote. I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah, can I go back in the record and switch my vote?
Yes, we'll note you
Apologies.
as a no for that ZTA.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies, everybody. Get distracted.
Okay. It still passes. Yes, we're moving on. What was I? I'm gonna ask the chair of PHP to please give his review of the committee's recommendation.
Yeah, the committee recommended this 3-0. I'm just going to turn it over to staff to walk us through because it's pretty technical by nature. I do believe there may be an amendment that is proposed by Councilmember Jawando, which we can get to after Ms. Nadeau moves forward.
Okay, so I will start on page 3. So the way the staff report is organized, first I'll go through the provisions the committee recommended no amendments to. So first, for height restrictions for the regional shopping center and the RSC overlay zone, the ZTA will remove the restriction that a shopping center has to be over 1.2 million square feet in order to increase its height for certain uses. As noted at the committee, a shopping center will still have to be at least 600,000 square feet. This includes Westfield Montgomery and Westfield Wheaton are the 2 properties in that overlay. Second, the ZTA restores the original 30% gross floor area cap on household living uses in the employment zones. Second, for standards for townhouse living, as noted, 2401 done, I think last year now, had conflicted under the current zoning ordinance with the design for life standards. So the ZTA clarifies an applicant can pick which set of standards they're using, and then some references to expedited plans are updated. So that's the parts of the ZTA the committee did not change. As for amendments the committee did make, the committee did unanimously recommend approval of the ZTA. The first amendment is for the gross floor area cap on non-residential uses for the commercial to residential reconstruction use. Given the cap being put back in the employment zones, there's a technical amendment on page 6 that the committee approved to add any conflicting references. It's a very heavily weighted notwithstanding. And then second, the committee discussed the outdoor storage of bulk items such as boats. So ZTA 2513 requires large items such as vehicle attachments, boats, other recreational items to be within the accessory structure setbacks of the underlying zone. The intent was to create a buffer for neighboring properties. The committee did ask for examples of the types of items that would be included on this, and that's on pages 7 through 8 for you. So these are all the different types of things we're talking about. The way that this would work in terms of enforcement is the zoning ordinance defines a recreational vehicle as including many of these items if they're attached to your truck, so to speak, as an example. So what would happen is, let's say in the R60 zone, you can have either 2 light commercial vehicles or 1 light and 1 commercial. So if your boat or trailer is attached to your truck, that's your 1 vehicle, and then you get 1 other. If you can't attach it to that vehicle, then instead of being in your driveway or against your neighbor's property line, that bulk item would need to be at least 5 feet in the R60 zone, since those are smaller lots, because that is the side setback for accessory structures. So that's how the amendment works in total. There is an example of what the language as amended by the committee would look like on page 11. I just put it all in bulk because there are a lot of different amendments. So the first thing the committee did is clarify that it should be comply with the setback, not within the setback, to make it clear which side of the setback you are on. Second, the planning board had concern about the applicability of this section to commercial uses, so adding the words personal property and then private residential property. And then, thanks to some feedback from DPS, the committee added a citation to DHCA authority and removed language about whether the vehicle is licensed and registered. This is important because DHCA, under a completely different chapter, already has authority to remove what's considered hazardous waste. So let's say you have a boat that's rusting, it's inoperable, DHCA already has authority to remove that. So making clear they can keep that authority. And then DPS also had requested the removal of portable storage units. These are those pods people use when they're moving or doing construction, because those already have separate standards. And then lastly, planning staff had asked for language that said personal vehicles are not included, so that there isn't confusion that if you have an extra truck, you have to park it in your yard. The committee asked council staff to confirm with DHCA, and they said they were fine with that language. And then lastly, an amendment to clarify, again, that property owners can either use the parking requirements, and if they can't meet the parking requirements, that's when you would jump to this section. So that was the bulk item discussion at PHP, and I will pause there.
So in this season of gratitude, you can see that I think Ms. Nadeau has the hardest job at the county council to navigate through zoning dynamics, but really appreciate her work on this. I'll yield back.
Thank you. We have an amendment by Councilmember Will Jawanto. If you can please proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. And yes, thank you for your work for a bill that's named Omnibus Revisions. Sounds like it's nothing, but it's a lot. So I'm going to ask for your help again here, but I'll just state, there's a memo I put in the packet. We had a discussion about this in committee, and I voted for the ZTA overall because I think most of it is fine, but this last piece, I said I might come back if we couldn't figure this out, and I don't think we figured it out, so I'm going to ask to remove this. It's related to the aspect of the bill of limit of vehicles and bulk items. You see some examples that Ms. Nadeau put in there. If you, for example, are a caterer and you go to farmers markets and you have a trailer and you hitch it up, or you have one or two and then you go and then it's unhooked, it would fall under this, and that's one of many things that could get you in a violation here. If you're on a small lot, you're not going to be able to necessarily, you'd have to, in some cases, move it to the back or not be able to move it anywhere and not be in compliance. There was an environmental consideration here. You might have to create more driveway, which we don't want to encourage. So I just think there's a lot of unintended consequences on this. And so the amendment would be, which I would move, would be to remove this final, well, I'm going to ask you to help me with the amendment, but to remove this final section related to these outdoor, vehicles, storages outside. So I'm going to ask you to state it correctly.
So in terms of drafting, this is actually a council attorney's dream. It'll be 2 brackets, and it's going to just take out everything I said in the last 3 minutes. So it's easy to write, but and that explanation covers it. We would just take out that section of the
There you
ZTA.
go. Much clearer.
No objection.
Okay.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Will Jawanto and no objection. I hear no objection. I want to make sure that everybody doesn't object. All right, so that's it.
No, without objection. So I'll stop talking.
So-
Thank you.
Love that. So I don't see anybody else requesting to speak on this ZTA. Is there a motion to approve zoning text amendment 2513 as amended? Moved by the chair, Andrew Friedson, second by Councilmember Jawanto. This is a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Lukey?
Yes.
Councilmember Lukey votes yes. Councilmember Mink?
Yes.
Councilmember Mink votes yes. Councilmember Sales?
Yes.
Councilmember Sales votes yes. Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart votes yes. Councilmember Glass? Yes. Councilmember Glass votes yes. Councilmember Katz?
Yes.
Councilmember Katz votes yes. Councilmember Friesen?
Yes.
Councilmember Friesen votes yes. Councilmember Jawando? Councilmember Jawando votes yes. Councilmember Balcom?
Yes.
Councilmember Balcom votes yes. Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez votes yes.
It was unanimous. This one was easy. Okay, let's move forward. Thank you, everyone. Item number 5, I'm going to kick it because we're a little behind. The next one is actually very exciting. I've been looking forward to this one for a while. So it's going to be the update on the county's fiscal plan. We have staff here from both the county council staff and the county executives team. I'm going to ask the council staff to kick us off and then share the table with everybody else. Go ahead.
Okay, good morning. I'm just going to, a lot of the themes have already kind of been brought up by council members earlier, so I'm just going to kick us off by thanking our partners from OMB and Finance for working collaboratively with us, as always, in putting this information together, and turn it over to Mr. Smith to run through the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Thank you, Council. It's that time of the year where we get to sit and look at the updated revenues and fiscal picture for the county as a kind of a mid-year check-in for fiscal 26. Just as a quick background, the county has a 6-year fiscal plan summary. You see it attached here, both the approved version and the updated version from the Office of Management and Budget. As always, this is a document and is just a snapshot in time. It includes the current conditions. There's a whole host underneath the fiscal plan summary of the assumptions that OMB has in this, so it doesn't update everything. It primarily updates our revenues based on current collections and current modeling. And as always, we will see a new version in March with the county executive's recommended budget, which will have new assumptions, new changes, and therefore that will be a new snapshot in time and may change the narrative of what we have today, either for better or for worse. So what the narrative is for today is this year's update deviates from previous ones we saw in December. In prior years, the council was receiving at this time great news of revisions upward for our revenues in the current fiscal year. A total of $225 million was the upward revision in fiscal 24 and $132 million in fiscal 25. So these additional revenues would help maintain the county's reserve levels while it also increased expenditures in those subsequent operating budgets. This year's update tells a slightly different story, so I'll start with the good news. The good news is fiscal 26 is on track. There's only a negligible downward revision for the 2026 total revenues, which is about a negative $1 million, a rounding error in the total budget. That's great. And also fiscal 25 ended better than expected in terms of revenues, which bolstered the county's reserves. That is where most of the good news ends in terms of this current fiscal picture update. For the remaining years, the fiscal plan has a picture that's more concerning. Total revenues are projected to decrease by more than $100 million in fiscal 27 when compared to June 2025. And I'll just note, again, for all of the fiscal plans, the future fiscal years are projections. June 25, when you guys approved the fiscal plan, there was projections for 27 through 31. These are also projections, and so when we're talking about changes in revenues, we're talking about changes in projections. However, all budgets that the council approves are based on projections, and so those projections form the narrative. As seen in Chart 1 on page 2 of the council staff memorandum, the reduction that we see in fiscal 27 sets the county on a path of reduced revenues and slower growth for the remaining years compared to the June approved fiscal plan. The current fiscal plan projects that more than $850 million in resources will not be available to fund county services and programs, as again compared to what we saw in June. The two culprits for these reductions are the county's largest tax revenues. Property taxes are projected to be less each of the years of the fiscal plan when compared to June 2025, with a total reduction of close to $530 million. Income taxes are also projected to be less, but not as severe as property taxes, totaling more than $311 million in reductions. So for the property taxes, the assessable base is expected to be slightly lower than what we were projecting in June, and as that compounds through the fiscal years, that reduces the total property taxes, as well as some minor, but not minor as it gets larger through the fiscal years in terms of our tax expenditures on the ITOC and potentially pilots. For income taxes, the primary reduction is just in our assumptions for wage and salary and total personal income compared to in June 2025. So, as I noted in the staff report, the reductions currently are assumed due to the federal impact and headwinds on the economy. So as we talked in June 2025, we were seeing news of the federal administration's policies on immigration, the federal workforce, and tariffs. We still didn't have data at that time. We were hoping to have more data now. Unfortunately, we just simply do not. The current collections for 26 are still based on property assessments that were done in January of 2025. And the income tax, as always, is a mixture of multiple calendar years, and we still have calendar year 2024 in our current income tax collections. And so we are still waiting on some of the actual data in terms of our revenues. Also, we just had a government shutdown for more than 6 weeks, and a lot of the publicly available economic data is still delayed or lagging in terms of where we're actually at for our workforce. So we will continue to see how that picture changes as we get into March 2026, but the current fiscal plan does assume those headwinds will hit us in 2027 in terms of our revenues. As noted earlier, the 2026 revenues are they're not written down very far, just a negative $1 million. But again, compared to 24 and 25, it's not significant in terms of an upward revision. So the narrative has changed, and in terms of where council staff is at with that, is we're wondering if this is the beginning of the bad news we're starting to see. And certainly, I'm not a betting man, but I think that the chances are greater that we will see more downward revisions, we will see upward revisions in March, given the headwinds that we're experiencing. We will see. I'm not betting on that, so don't hold me to it. The updated revenues establish the narrative for the remaining elements of the fiscal plan. Since the December fiscal plan maintains the same policy decisions as June, it's best, in my opinion, just to reflect on the total resources available for the agencies rather than what OMB has assumed for the agencies in 27. And just look at how the overall growth for agency uses will change throughout the fiscal years. And because of the reduction in revenues estimated right now, the total resources available for agencies in 27 and beyond are also less than what was assumed in June 2025. The most concerning feature of the 27 balancing is primarily the growth there of $75 million is due to the reserves that the county has built up. Is not the growth in the agency use of $75 million is not assumed because of growth in revenues, but it's assumed the use of reserves will happen there. And that is meager compared to the total of $422 million that the council added in 26 for the budget in terms of programs and services. As noted in the staff report, reserves should be used for one-time expenditures, and certainly council staff will continue to support that. Any use of reserves to balance the fiscal 27 budget in the light of the downward revisions for revenues will only continue to create more instability and create a larger structural deficit for the county to fill in later. So the last point I will make in terms of what happens in fiscal 28 is actually due to these reductions, the current fiscal plan assumes a net reduction to agency use of $36 million compared to the projected fiscal 27. Certainly that means if should the picture remain unchanged and these numbers prove to be true, the county would have to find a net reduction of $36 million in order to maintain services in 28 if they approved a 27 budget with agency uses as estimated in this plan. In conclusion, before I hand it back over to the council president for questions, we just want to conclude or summarize where we're at. Fiscal 26 is stable, but there is much less growth when compared to previous fiscal years at this time. Fiscal 27 is projected to have $100 million less dollars in resources than previously assumed, weakening the county's fiscal position for fiscal 27 and beyond. The county's and the council's strong fiscal policies to maintain its reserves ensures that in fiscal 26 there's a buffer available. However, that buffer will quickly evaporate should these, again, numbers prove true in 27 and beyond, and the revenues are simply not there to rebuild that should the county maintain its current agency uses. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the council president for questions and comments.
Before I open it up, I would like to ask the county executives team if they have any comments or questions that they would like to share with us.
Good morning, everyone. Jennifer Bryant, Director of the Office of Management and Budget. I first want to thank Councilmember Stewart for her leadership over the past year and look forward to continuing working with you on the GO committee as the chair, and want to congratulate both Council President, Councilmember Natalie Fanny Gonzalez and Marilyn Balcom in their new roles on the council, and we look forward to working with both of you as well. I don't have a lot to say. Thank staff for their work on this packet. We, on the executive side, are, of course, watching the fiscal picture that is happening both at the state and the federal level. We know that changes at the federal level can be daily and sometimes hourly, so the uncertainties are there and the needs are there. The county executive is very well aware of the needs. We are currently working with departments for recommendations to the county executive as he is developing his FY27 capital budget and his operating budget. We are doing sort of both at the same time. They are overlapping, so we are being very vigilant about what is happening at the state level. The $1.4 billion deficit is very concerning to the executive branch, and we, as we stated to our rating agencies in October, we will be watching that picture. We're watching the federal level picture and any impacts that may occur on the county for programs that may be reduced and or eliminated. So the decisions that will be before the county executive as he develops his budget will be vast because the needs are there, and we are not yet sure what the revenue picture will look like in the coming months. So we will continue our surveillance of those factors and including them in our recommendations to the county executive as he continues his deliberations on the budget. And I don't know if any of my colleagues from finance has anything that they would like to state, but myself and staff are here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for that. I'm just going to be very clear. I am very worried for FY27. Our economic stability is, compared to the previous year, as you mentioned, is not there. So we had to be, I'm like getting myself ready to take really painful decisions as we move forward, understanding that we cannot lose our values and we need to ensure that we continue to protect the most vulnerable in our communities. But we're dealing with hard times, and another reason why when I say we must increase the tax base is important. I'm going to say it once again here. I'm going to open it up for colleagues. I see quite a few people would like to speak. Please keep your comments brief. We're going to have plenty of time to talk about this in the next year, just because we are running behind time, and I just be mindful of the time. That's what I'm asking. Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions. I'll keep my comments brief because a lot was just said by Council President. I share her views. And Director Bryant, you did talk about the planning that the county exec is doing. This council, and you all may not be able to answer this question, but this council since January has been asking for a plan from the county exec's office to how we are going to weather this storm. We knew that we were going to be facing great challenges. We have asked and we have been told that there is planning happening so that we just don't receive supplementals as one-offs, but that's what's actually happening now. We're getting supplementals for nurses in our schools because federal grants have been taken back, for supportive housing and other things. This council has stepped up to fill some of the gaps during particularly the shutdown. And actually, our former colleague, Councilmember Albanaz, sat up here and talked about how we had a plan during the recession. We need a plan, and we need one to understand what are going to be the guiding principles as we go into this budget. We received the CIP on January 15th and then the operating budget, and it would be very beneficial to actually understand what the guiding principles are and how we're prioritizing the resources here. So again, I don't know if you have any comment on that, but just wanted to send that message. One of the questions I had, but again, this could be just a comment, is on page 3, when we talk about the assumptions regarding the fiscal plan. We talk about state aid. We don't assume any increases, but we're also not assuming any decreases or the pushing down of cost sharing. And just want to lift up and see if OMB had any projections or thoughts on state aid or the potential for more cost sharing to be pushed down to us, given what's happening at the state.
Thank you for your question, Councilmember Stewart. That we are very concerned about that as well, and we have not made any updates to the state aid assumptions. And many of you may be aware or may not be aware, the Board of Revenue Estimates will be doing an update on the state's fiscal picture this coming Friday. So we are looking to see where there are glimpses of things that could be further pushed down to the counties and the local jurisdictions that we would have to absorb or find a way to actually move forward for our residents. So we are watching, and we don't have as much information yet as we would like to have. But as that trickles out and as the governor releases his budget, we will certainly be doing that analysis and making some recommendations to the county executive.
Thank you. And there was one piece of good news, I think, in this report, the increase to the Working Families Income Supplement. This was something that we spent a good amount of time last year on the GO committee looking at, and the council, as we were looking at our piece of that here in the county, and thinking about how we needed to make sure people knew about the Earned Income Tax Credit. This is something that the comptroller has been working on. She just released a report with the Urban Institute on efforts that can be done. Do you have any more insights into the increase that we're seeing? Are we seeing an uptick of people enrolling in this? And does the county exec's office have any plans to be more proactive in making sure that people know about the Earned Income Tax Credit?
I will let my colleagues from Finance respond to that
Thank
question.
you.
Thank you.
Nancy Feldman, Department of Finance. As you might think back to the Working Families Supplement, it is administered by the state, it is paid out by the state, and they send us a bill and they tell us how much we owe. The information that we have at this point is that approximately 3,000 more taxpayers or credit receivers, if you will, are in the program and have filed for the Working Families Income Supplement. We don't know anything about them specifically. That level of information is not available to us, but we had assumed about 3,000 less than actually have applied and received.
Great, thank you. And I think given the work the comptroller is doing, we'll likely have a government operations committee meeting to dig into this further. And then finally, before I turn it back over to our president, I'd just like to, as Director Bryan, as you pointed out, the operating budget and the capital budget go really hand in hand. And there's been a lot of conversation regarding our ability to borrow here in the county. And I'm glad to hear that the county executive is looking both, and you all are looking both at the operating and capital at the same time, because borrowing money isn't free. It costs us in our debt service. And as Councilmember Katz said, if debt service was one of our departments, it would be our largest department. And when we increase our debt and our borrowing, that's money we pay back first and foremost, and it comes from our operating budget. And so making sure that we take this information, have that front and center as we go into January is going to be really important. And I very much appreciate the work that each of you are doing to keep that front and center. So thank you very much. I'll turn it back to the Council President.
Thank you. Councilmember Andrew Friedson.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam President and Madam former President and Government Operations Fiscal Policy Chair. Really appreciate the comments and the concerns. If anything, this is a sober dose of cold water of the difficult choices that we have and the challenging road that's coming ahead. This is empirical confirmation of what residents and county businesses and nonprofits are experiencing every day. The economy is not what we hope it would be. It is not heading towards a positive place. It's heading in many ways towards more challenging times ahead, and many in our community are bracing for that, have already begun bracing for that, are directly impacted by that. The first question that I have is the $75.6 million the council staff talked about earlier, the increase in agency uses from FY 26 to 27 is based on the use of reserves. I just wanted to see if you could talk about the concern that was raised by council staff here in terms of the structural deficit, a conversation that we have every year for how those funds have been used and whether or not we think that there is going to be an impact on the structural deficit as a result.
Sure. Chris Mullen from Office Management Budget. I think the structural reserve, so in 26, the structural reserve, I think, was around 100 million using, using reserves for one-time resources. I think it's going to be, when the county exec puts his budget together, he'll make a decision on what he's going to do with the surplus reserves that come out of the 25. So that'll be a decision point for the executive in his budget.
Any inclination or any information that we have received of how the county executive is going to do that, or we're just going to find that out in the budget like we have in previous years?
More than likely, we'll find out in the budget like you have in previous years, but of course we are advising that those one-time reserves be used for one-time investments, and he is taking those types of investments under consideration. There are a lot of places, both in our capital budget and in our operating budget, where one-time investments make sense, like in affordable housing. So I would just look to see what transpires in March.
You have been advising for many years, as I have. The county executive hasn't necessarily listened to you, so hopefully he will listen to you this year, given the magnitude of the challenges. You talked about working with agencies and being very vigilant, which I appreciate from your perspective, but are there any specific strategies, directives, or new policies that have been shared with departments, labor partners, or stakeholders as we navigate these issues, either to address the current fiscal year or in preparation for the upcoming capital and operating budget for next fiscal year?
Well, typically in each budget, the beginning of each budget year, there is some guidance for departments to be good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars and watch their spending. And when we know there are emergencies that arise and departments have other operational issues that they must address, and the county executive is committed to making sure that frontline services are not impacted by what's going on in the fiscal picture. With that said, the departments have also been asked to prioritize their request and prioritize enhancements and other items that they will be asking and seeking within the budget, but also we are looking at their programmatic challenges, which are most concerning. We want to make sure that services to the residents remain strong and that we can support those services. But again, that will require prioritization by those departments and as they present their budgets requests to the county executive. So that has been some of the guidance. But I'm sure there will be more coming.
I appreciate that. I've got to say, prioritizing and being good stewards of taxpayer dollars is something that should be happening every year. I don't think that's anything new or anything different. I don't think that meets the moment that we're in and the data that is before us and the challenges that we see ahead. We heard from the former council president and GEO chair that we've been asking for a year now for a plan, for specific guidance, for an approach to how we're going to navigate these challenges. We have not seen that. I don't believe the departments have heard that. Our stakeholders, our nonprofit partners, our labor partners, nobody understands what the plan is going to be. And I don't think that that is the right approach. I don't think that that is the type of leadership that we need in an existential moment like the one that we're in. What we know right now is concerning, and what we don't know still is even more challenging as we move forward. The risk, as noted by council staff, is nearly all to the downside, and we have to proceed with extreme caution, and we need specific guidance and direction of how we intend to navigate through this, and that needs to be the county executive providing that guidance to the departments as we address the current budget challenges, but also as the next fiscal year's operating and capital budgets are put forward. And so we'll continue to call for that and hope that it comes to fruition. I'll yield back.
Thank you. Councilmember Marilyn Balcom.
So thank you. I just wanted to also mention the ITAC. I think from the perspective of its sobering news for the impact on the budget. However, that's something that we all took on ourselves, all took on to get that word out and to make sure that our residents were getting the credits that they deserve. So that is a little silver lining on that. So I do want to, the point about the decrease from 5% to 3.5%. So where does that number come from in terms of how you estimate that? That's the first question. But also the just this statement that the reductions in assessable tax base from appeals, and so is that I know we have appeals every year. We encourage our residents if they have questions to go through that process. Is it now any different than in the past? And is there any lesson that we need to learn from our appraisals too high at this point?
Thank you. Councilmember Malcolm, I see you looking at me. However, I would like to defer to finance to provide those details if you don't mind.
Thank you for the question. There were a couple of moving parts there. So just to start with the ITOC, I know that wasn't an actual comment, but yes, we saw an increase in the number of people who had filed and received the ITOC. A very small increase relative to the number that had fallen off the rolls after the requirement for the application for the homestead was required. So it is in a positive direction. We underestimated it by a few thousand. So we're taking a look at that, and we'll see how to incorporate that going forward, whether we put back a growth factor into that, because we don't know who and what the conditions were for the folks who came to that filing this year. So with respect to assessments, we have appeals on a daily basis, pretty much, particularly in the commercial sector. And we've been tracking them very closely for the last couple of years. As you know, there's been a significant decrease sort of nationally in the usage of commercial buildings post-COVID. And so we're not seeing a significant deviation this year. What we're seeing is two things. There's a timing issue. When we set our revenue forecast for property taxes, we use the January assessments. And when we are in this position now, it changes every month. We get a report every single month as to what those assessments are. In a market where property values are growing more slowly, that appeal is more material when we get to the point in time today where we're using a much more current assessed value. So it's more material because of the slow growth. When we were in the rapid growth period, it didn't make as much of a difference. And so we're refining our estimating plans in order to try and see if we can capture that not from January, but from a February or even a March assessment roll, so that we're more current when we are putting forth the revenue forecast for the operating budget.
Thank you. And then, so the expectation, so we're going out through FY31. So there's just a general expectation that the growth will be slow throughout that period. And is that a national, a regional assessment?
Well, there are layers, right? We start at the national and we start working our way down. What we're seeing right now is some stability in our area, but there is the anecdotal parts of this information, such as homes are sitting on the market longer, homes might be selling not on day one, and then also selling for maybe at or below asking. And so from the residential portion, and as I think we all appreciate, the majority of our assessments in the county are residential, although commercials individually are obviously larger individual values. And so we are definitely anticipating a slowdown in our growth rate. What we also all understand is we have 1/3 of the county reassessed every year, and so it takes time for that to roll into the overall property tax revenue forecast, which is why you still see growth in this current fiscal year and next fiscal year, and then it will, and it is assumed to start slowing down once the assessment from this year starts to roll in.
Great. Okay, thank you. And yes, we're going to have a very challenging year, but we talk a lot about housing affordability, and that is the other side to this discussion. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Don Lucky.
Thank you, Madam President. Picking up where Councilmember Balcom left off, one of the questions or things that I think is important for, as my colleagues say, the millions watching at home to understand is that the property assessments, where it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 every 3-year cycle, those assessments are done by the State Department of Assessments and Taxations, correct? Okay. And one of the things that I would be curious to know, because we are responsible for Montgomery County, and we think about ourselves in this bubble in that way. But what I would like to know is whether appeals, especially because fiscal challenges are statewide, what I'd like to know is whether Montgomery County is having a disproportionate number of appeals for those state-performed valuations than other jurisdictions in Maryland, and whether there's a change or a sort of a disconnect from what we are experiencing here versus other Maryland counties, right? Because when I look at different things, even just because obviously the SDAT valuations are different than what, Redfin puts up as the range for potentially selling your home. They're two very different things, and the sales price and the SDAT valuation are very different. And that's a good thing, because nobody wants to pay the property taxes on your Redfin valuation, right? But even in other counties that, typically people go, well, what's happening in Howard or Prince George's? Even in a much smaller, more rural jurisdiction like Carroll, they've gone way up, the valuations. And so I'd be curious to see that and expressed as a percentage of our population filing those types of appeals versus percentage of population in other jurisdictions filing similar valuation appeals for their property taxes.
We'll look into that and get back to you.
Great, thank you. The other piece is for the income tax projections. Those are based on 2024 income tax, correct?
It's a mixture, as my colleague said. It's layers.
Right.
So what I will say is that the income tax received to date includes calendar year 2025 for withholdings. It includes payments in calendar year 2024 for those that filed late. And then that's where we're at right now. But in terms of projections, and we can defer to our finance colleague to go into more details. We use different data, both personal income data from Bureau of Economic Analysis, wage and salary data, for the projections going beyond where we're at currently in terms of how much our income will grow, or the taxable base of the income will grow. So.
Right. So it's multifactorial in what you pull together to produce. But in terms of revenues actually received to date by the county, because of the lag time, we're only talking about revenues that Montgomery County has received now on income taxes that were paid in 2024 per the 2024 tax filings, correct?
Again, it's a mixture. I'll defer to our colleagues of finance in terms of the percentage of what is calendar year 2025 withholdings versus payments that happened in calendar year 2024 for those that filed late.
Okay, and then then let me ask you this too to go with that. So for the 2025 withholdings, that would include withholdings as part of payroll for individuals, and it also includes those who pay estimated taxes, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Right. The 2024 amounts that Mr. Smith is referring to is if you are a taxpayer and you request an extension to October for filing your tax return, you're supposed to pay your tax in April.
Right.
Right. Your best guess.
Anything still due, right?
Right. And we hope they do. But once you get through the process, there could be more. So the amounts that are being received from calendar year 2024 now are related to those who have filed for an extension, filed their actual returns in October, and we receive those monies in our distributions in November and in January. Part
Right.
of that is the ability to process all of the October filings in time to get it to us in November. We did have a very positive distribution in the end of November, which supported our overall income tax forecast.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I guess we'll end on a comment. And this is something, I find myself saying every year, and yet I haven't seen it happen. And particularly to Council President, or I'm about to make you still president again. Go Chair, Councilmember Stewart, and Councilmember Friedson, who also is newly evicted from the Go Committee, but deeply passionate about this stuff, have pointed out there hasn't always been. We get told we're going to get a thing from the executive branch, or we go through the budget during all the committee hearings on the operating budget, and we get told, yes, we're working on that. We're going to look at duplication of programs, and we're going to assess what's working, what's not working, and stuff's a one-time expense, except it's been in there for 4 years, and I get really, really, really tired of seeing that because, I have flagged those things every year that I have been on this body so far, and yet they keep coming back. And then I find out, the executive branch agencies were just told cut 3% across the board. That is not strategic. There has to be a better way to do this. And we've gotten ourselves in a position where we are now facing a much bigger fiscal emergency because of what's going on with the federal government. But in the 3 years leading up to it, we didn't take the time to do the hard work to make sure we were in the best possible shape. And now we're in a position where we have a tremendous needs because of those gaps in federal revenue, and yet do not want to dig a bigger hole, cannot dig a bigger hole. And so that's really disappointing. I hope I am pleasantly surprised when I see the capital budget in January and when I see the operating budget in March. And also knowing, particularly in our capital budget, how many facilities are in need desperately for years of when things were going better, but weren't taken care of in the best of ways. And that didn't help anyone. And now we are left to bear the consequences of all of it, all at one time. And so, I hate to be a downer about this, but those are realities that no one has effectively sat down and dealt with. And that's the stuff that keeps me up at night. So I look forward to collaborating with my colleagues on this. I am blessed that Mr. Howard sits next to me, so I get to ask him questions as much as I want to. But we have incredibly difficult work ahead of us, and I am firmly committed to that. But we all have to put on a little bit of a shade of glasses of realism as we move forward with the FY27 budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Wiljawondo.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate the update from our staff, as always, and for the work with the administration. Just want to make a couple points. Obviously, every year we have to take the hand we're dealt, and this cruel and immoral administration is dealing us a really horrible hand. And, you know, whether it's the 6,000 plus federal workers who have lost their jobs already here in the county. Many of us stood out and watched some of the folks at HHS down the block here scan their ID and not be allowed into work a few months ago. To what's happening to our immigrant community, we're going to have to step up in that context, right? And it's an uncertain context because, as you said, things are changing each and every day. But one thing that I think it's important to give the context here is it's also unprecedented in its cruelty, but also in how the actions of this administration are transferring money from the lowest income to the highest income. The biggest transfer of wealth that has ever occurred was the one big ugly bill that transferred wealth from low-income Medicaid recipients, SNAP recipients, folks who are relying on Head Start, through the version to the wealthiest 1%, the people making more than $1 million. And we have to sit with, we have a lot of millionaires in Montgomery County. In 2017, the last time an assessment I saw was done, there was over 3,200 of them. And I'm glad they're doing well, but we have by far 1,000 more than any other place in the state. 5 of the richest cities in the state, the top 5 are all here in Montgomery County. So you have people who are sitting with the benefit of this horrible, cruel administration's actions through further capital gains, further reductions in income tax. They are getting, the average millionaire, $100,000 around that back in federal taxes. And who's that coming from? That's coming from the SNAP recipient, the Medicaid recipient, the student who needs Head Start. So while we're going to have to make difficult decisions as we do every year, we're also going to have to make the unprecedented decision of understanding that context at the same time. Now, are we going to be able to supplant what the federal government has taken away and given to the wealthiest among us? No. But we do have to prioritize and plug holes. And we're going to have to ask, I believe, our community members who have done well to do more to help us fill those holes. I'm just going to be very clear about my view. Now, the details, we still won't be able to cover everything. But I think it's a moral imperative that we do that. And we have to protect our residents. And I know my colleagues agree we have to protect our residents, but it's just an unprecedented upside down time. And I ask that the executive branch, when you come back and get the estimates on Friday and we know where we are as we go through this process, one of the things I want to know is I want some analysis on these federal tax benefits, how that's playing out. I think we need to take that into context. Is that something you can look into? I'm looking at Department of Finance.
We will look into it.
I appreciate it. Thank you, and thank you for your work. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilmember Evan Glass.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate the comments made previously by Councilmember Luedtke about SSTAT. I have long stated since I arrived at the council saying that SSTAT should actually be a county function. As it once was decades ago. We know our properties, we know the changes in our communities, and we know that one house directly next to another does not make them the same. There are a lot of nuances, and there has been a lot of reporting showing that SSTAT improperly assesses homes to the detriment of our middle and lower class neighbors, overcharging them, over-assessing them, and under-assessing other properties. Those are all facts. And I've shared my thoughts with lawmakers in Annapolis, and perhaps as we go through this process, that will be another legislative priority at the state level. Putting that aside, looking through the packet, I have 2 questions. One is for the executive team, and that is, what are the next benchmarks and data points you are all looking to that will help better inform us as to what the fiscal reality might be?
Well, as we stated with Councilmember Stewart, we're certainly looking at when the governor's budget is being produced and what things may be recommended as passed down to county governments to take care of. That was once a state responsibility. That is definitely one benchmark. Also noting that the superintendent of Montgomery County Public Schools will release his budget next Wednesday. So we are trying to cobble together all of the intel out in those spaces to figure out a plan of, okay, where do we go from here once we know, get a better picture of what the investments, the requested investments look like, based off of what our revenue pictures will look like in the future as well.
I appreciate you pairing that, right? So if I understand what you said correctly, the county executive is looking towards the governor's actions and the superintendent's actions to inform his actions.
Well, not necessarily to inform his actions, but they are all components of what he will have to consider as he's developing his budget.
More broadly, are there external data points? Are there other revenue estimates? Are there other external realities that you are also looking to as guideposts?
The other external reality, of course, is what's happening at the state level. At the federal level, whether or not programs will survive, whether they will be drastically reduced to the point that they are ineffective, and the county will have to try to fill in those gaps. But there are also, economic indicators that Department of Finance looks at, and of course our revenue pictures, whether it's income tax or personal property tax, it's all environmentally something that we need to have in our toolbox in order to do analysis on what would come next.
It was the environmental analyses I was waiting for. The real hard data that is not dependent on other elected officials or appointed officials' decision-making, right? Which ultimately, aside from the governor and what the state does, whatever they might pass down to us, at some point in some reality, we have to accept that, what comes downstream. The other aspects are discretionary. Each appointed and elected official can make their own determination as to how to move forward. So thank you for that. And the second question might be towards council staff, but I think it might dovetail with the executive team as well. In the packet and in the information, is there any discernment between the fiscal challenges that are external regarding income taxes, property valuations, and also the financial realities, as was just noted, by the federal government, right? Reductions in services, reductions in support for our nonprofit ecosystem within HHS, whatever agencies and departments there might be. Have we delineated that?
I'll get it started, but also welcome comments from our executive partners. So no, the fiscal plan does not make any assumptions based on that, in so much as we just have an updated revenue picture. And as I noted, the whatever is left over after we pay our fiscal policies of the non-agency use is what's available to use for discretionary funds, as you were talking about. And certainly if the county needs to step up and put more in for reductions from the federal side, that will be part of the discretionary pot that remains based on the revenue picture. And so it does not make any assumptions specifically for what you're asking for other than the aggregate of what's left over.
I'll end on this. I think as we move forward, we have to keep those two realities in mind, that there are services we currently provide. They are core functions to who we are as people and as county government. And clearly we want to be able to maintain them. And then there are also reductions at the federal level that we want to mitigate as much as possible, but there's near unanimity, as I've engaged in conversations, not only here in the council, but out in the community, that we will do what we can do with regard to the the changes at the federal level. And so I think recognizing they are related but separate in some respect on a fiscal ledger, we just need to be mindful of that. And as we engage in this conversation, I think marking or denoting those as such would be helpful. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. We have two more last questions, very brief comments. Councilmember Lorian Sales.
Okay, thank you for the grim projections. It's not surprising given the fiscal constraints at the state and what's happening at the federal level and the increased demand and the continued conversations about how we're going to do more with less resources. This question is for the county executive staff. If you can provide a bit more insight into how the decreased economic activity factors into the assumptions and models that you projected in your analysis for the upcoming years. Can you share what methodology you used to calculate the changes in revenue projections?
We have, we utilize basic economic assumptions from Moody's Analytics and S&P Global. They change their name on an annual basis, sorry. And we use that to inform our models. We have a separate model for income tax. Its main inputs include these economic assumptions on wage and salary, personal income, resident employment, among others. And we utilize that model, which then takes into account some of what we were talking about a few moments ago with Councilmember Luedtke, which is when we actually receive money associated with those income tax payments. They tend to spread out over approximately 3 years, some of which are withholding, and some of which are delayed tax payments that we were talking about. So our model takes into account the assumptions. It utilizes a 10-plus year history of those receipts and how they have been distributed to the county, and then we check it and we check it and we check it again against the facts. Similar concept for our property tax, and these are our two largest revenue streams, and so the most extensive modeling having to do with our combination of our history of assessments, both on a monthly basis and an annual basis, as well as expectations that come from assumptions we receive on interest rates, home sales, home values, et cetera, that are part of the assumptions we receive from our external partners. We also look at, as Director Bryant said, we look at the state's assumptions because we are such a substantial portion of the state. So the assumptions we receive from Moody's and S&P are what I'll call a derivative, not in a math sense, but just they're related to what the state is using because we are such a big input for income tax in particular into their overall revenues. So we look at their work and we communicate with the BRE folks to get some of their models. We don't use their assumptions, but we look at theirs and we compare and adjust where necessary.
Thank you. Are there any cost-saving measures or program adjustments being considered to address anticipated overspending?
Yes and no. I will say yes and no because we do our typical quarter analysis for department spending, and we have gone through the first quarter analysis as of to date, and we'll be doing the second quarter, which gives us a more clear picture of how spending is progressing. where departments are instructed, if you think you're going to overspend and or you have emergencies and other things to address community-wise, to work with OMB so that we can make sure that you're in a good place and that you can still deliver the services that you need to deliver, and that we can watch the investments that they're making and to try to peel back some of that overspending. With that said, there are some conditions that just are not manageable in that regard, like overtime for police because they don't have a full staffed complement, overtime for fire and rescue in the corrections department, and facility emergencies with DGS. So there are a number of things that occur in any budget year where departments could overspend. There are some expenditures that we know are typical, like the overtime, and we try to make some room or some projected room for those expenditures, but it can be
raises.
Difficult. Yes.
Okay.
Compensation.
Yeah.
And we are in bargaining with 2 of our union partners this year, so that will be reflected in the county executive's budget as well. So just trying to make sure that in the universe of investments that we know that we are making room in the macro for those things and accounting for them, and then trying to solve what would be a math problem from that perspective.
And my last question, as we are looking at these decreases in our reserves, are there any discussions? I know that we have a new executive director with our Economic Development Corporation. Are we exploring any new revenue streams or exploring adjusted tax rates to mitigate any shortfalls?
I know the county executive has been out in the public and speaking about taxes and tax revenue, and I think he has some ideas. They have not come fully to fruition as of yet, but I would look for some of those ideas either on the capital side and or the operating side as those budgets are presented to the council.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Katz, you have the last word.
And I will be as quick as I can possibly be. First off, thank you for the realistic updates. To Councilmember Lukey's point, on the appeals assessment, could you break that down, please, between residential and commercial? Because commercial, if they don't have a tenant, and then they're assessed at that point, they can appeal it, and then if they get a tenant, they forget to let us know about it, so therefore they're not reassessed. So if there's something we could find out about that, please. And Mr. Smith, please remind me, you were the one who came up with this number, I believe. This wasn't there a very low number of taxpayers who pay an extremely high, an income tax, pay an extremely high number percentage-wise of the taxes in Montgomery County?
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Katz. I think what you're referring to, and I'm not sure I came up with the number, just in all fairness to whoever needs that attribution.
If it's a good idea, Dean, I'll let you say you did it.
It's not the same, but the number that we have heard for a while, and I don't know if this has changed, I think it's worth looking at with finances, there's about 50 households each year, and those households could change each year that have a outsized effect on our income taxes, primarily due to the items that Ms. Feldman talked about earlier. When they're paying capital gains, they're doing their payments later, and they're reconciling the taxes that they're owed. Maybe they sold a business, maybe they sold a lot of stocks. Those things we cannot predict. And again, I think what you're referring to is that about 50 households. But again, it's not the same 50 households. I just want to note that.
And do you remember the percentage of what they...
No, unfortunately I do not.
If you could, does somebody else know? Or if you could come up to let us know. My concern is, because it is such a small number of households, and if any of that number of those households decide that they're going to say that they're no longer residents, they might still have a house in Montgomery County, but they declare their residence someplace else, that we would lose all of their income. And that, to me, is a real concern. So thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you so much to everyone. And for staff, we look forward to having an exciting year. Very painful year. But thank you for the partnership. Colleagues, I'm looking at the time. Please be mindful of the time of your remarks. I'm going to move forward with the introduction of bills. So we have one today, a very special one, and it's Expiry Bill 3525, the Trust Act. I'm going to say it very simply. It's not just led by me. This is such an important piece of legislation that is about welcoming the immigrant community, but also embracing public safety for every single person who lives in this county. It has been not just co-sponsored, but co-led by every single council member sitting here. I'm going to pass the mic to our attorney to see if you want to add anything else about this, and then we're going to quickly just move along the agenda. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. There's nothing that I need to add, but happy to elaborate or answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no comments and questions, thank you so much for that. And thank you for the community for being here today and for pushing this. We're going to continue embracing our values in Montgomery County. Look forward to the public hearing on January 13th. With that, we're going to move forward, my friends. The next item on the agenda is called on bills. Next to the council's consideration are two bills for the final reading. The first one is Expedited Bill 3125, Landlord-Tenant Relations, Landlord Notice Requirements, Evictions. The Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee recommends enactment with amendments. I'm going to pass the mic to the chair of the PHP Committee, Chairman Fritzen.
Thank you. I will try to be brief here. This was Expedited Bill 3125, Landlord-Tenant Relations. It was sponsored by lead sponsor, Councilmember Mink. There was a public hearing on October 28th. The bill requires landlords to notify tenants in the county of scheduled evictions, establish penalties for noncompliance, and notify the department of upcoming evictions. We had a discussion about the notification. There was an initial interest in requiring the sheriff's office to notify Department of Housing and Community Affairs. Unfortunately, we're not legally able to do that. And the department had clarified that all they were looking for was to essentially be copied on the notification. So to try to mitigate the administrative burden. There are some concerns about whether or not they are going to be copied and how that is going to work. But ultimately, there was an amendment that did not go through, just for colleagues' understanding and consideration after we had quite a bit of discussion on that item. That committee session was on December 1st. The PHP committee voted 3-0 to recommend enactment of the bill with a few amendments, clarify the bill's requirements, would apply to evictions occurring on or after 14 days after the bill's expedited effective date, clarify that a landlord must provide to DHCA a copy of the required notice at least 14 days in advance of scheduled evictions, require DHCA to maintain a website with resources for individuals facing eviction, and require the landlord to provide the tenant with a link to the website, clarify that the landlord must provide to DHCA a copy of the same. We just clarified that, and ensure that it's the complete written notice that it provided to the tenant pursuant to state law, and then require DHCA to share notices of eviction with Department of Health and Human Services. With that, we have a 3-0 committee recommendation, and I will yield back to you and staff as needed.
Does staff have any comments?
No, thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilmember Kristen Mink, the lead sponsor of this bill.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you to the bill's co-sponsors, to Sheriff Max Wee, who wrote a very compelling letter of support, to the community members who advocated first for the state bill that made this possible, and now for passage of this bill. And I'll note that includes residents who have faced eviction themselves and those who have supported others who have been evicted and those who are in both categories. Thank you to the executive branch for their thoughtful engagement, to the PHP committee for their unanimous recommendation as amended. Thank you, Ms. Wellens, for all of your navigation. And thank you to my staff, especially Anna and Chris, for all their work. And I'll note that in my office, we have many, many constituent cases in which we're trying to prevent evictions and helping to pick up the pieces when it does happen. So being able to make these systemic improvements is very meaningful. And I will close by quoting a community member who spoke at our public hearing, Harold Hill, who noted that every eviction I have been through has been tied to a job loss, and the job losses are happening now. So with that, I look forward to getting this done now. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Mink. And as she mentioned, thank you to the state for allowing us to do this. With that, my friends, we have a recommendation from the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee. This is a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Lukey?
Yes.
Councilmember Lukey votes yes. Councilmember Mink?
Yes.
Councilmember Mink votes yes. Councilmember Sales?
Yes.
Councilmember Sales votes yes. Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart votes yes. Councilmember Glass?
Yes.
Councilmember Glass votes yes. Councilmember Katz?
Yes.
Councilmember Katz votes yes. Councilmember Friedson?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedson votes yes. Councilmember Dwando?
Yes.
Councilmember Dwando votes yes. Councilmember Balcom?
Yes.
Councilmember Balcom votes yes. Councilmember Fawning Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Fawning Gonzalez votes yes.
Thank you so much. That was unanimous. Thank you for all the advocacy also involved in this bill. We're going to move on to the second bill for the final reading today. This is the HERO Act. And so you know, when I heard during the public hearing that folks wanted to have this bill passed in December, I told the clerk, this bill must be here on the last day of session. And it happened thanks to the GO Committee's work as well. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic to the chair of the GO Committee, Chairwoman Stewart.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President Fanny Gonzalez, for making sure we get this on the agenda today. The GO Committee met on December 4th, unanimously recommends with amendments expedited Bill 32-25, Employees Retirement System Survivor Benefits Death During the Line of Duty, also known as the HERO Act. This bill would increase death benefits to spouses of Group G members whose deaths are service-connected and generally amend the law regarding the employees' retirement system, including pension benefits and other benefits available to survivors upon service-connected deaths. The purpose of the bill is to maintain existing survivor benefit options for spouses and children of career fighters. Those are Group G members who are killed in the line of duty, while adding an option for the spouse to receive a pension as if the member had at least 20 years of credited service. The HERO Act would also ensure that benefits are received expeditiously following a line of duty death and reaffirm the county's commitment to honoring the critical work of the county's first responders and public safety officials. I want to thank the lead sponsors, Councilmember Glass and Katz, and I believe there is, Madam President, another amendment for the body that Councilmember Lukey, Katz, and Glass had previewed at our committee session, but it wasn't ready yet for the committee to take up. And so with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Does the council staff want to go over that amendment first?
With your permission, Madam President, I would defer to the bill sponsors. If they would like me to walk through it, I'm happy to do that, obviously.
Councilmember Evan Glass, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. I do want to thank you and the GO Committee Chair for expeditiously moving this legislation forward, because this bill is all about timing. On January 11th, Master Firefighter Christopher Higgins made the ultimate sacrifice as he was responding to a fire, and he died in the line of duty. And while his family mourned this devastating and sudden loss, they were also left without their primary source of income. And after 23 years of dedicated service, Master Firefighter Higgins earned the security of knowing that his wife and children would be protected. His pension should have reached them without hesitation or delay. But Master Firefighter Higgins' widow, Lisa, went 6 months without any income or financial support. 6 months. And the HERO Act will ensure that the families of our fallen are immediately taken care of. This legislation strengthens our public safety, it fixes critical gaps, and it honors those who serve our community. We know that no legislation can undo the pain of the fallen firefighters and their families, what they go through, but the HERO Act will make it easier. God forbid a heroic first responder is killed in the line of duty. I want to note that this is the first step in fixing this system across the board. A number of us, particularly Councilmember Luedtke and Councilmember Katz, will be offering an amendment to extend these same benefits to our police officers. And we have already begun drafting legislation to ensure the county's line of duty benefits are updated to also include our sheriff's deputies and our correctional officers. I want to thank my colleague, Councilmember Katz, for his partnership in this legislation. I also want to thank Valeria Carranza and Hannah Wilkove on my team for their work. And finally, I want to acknowledge the compassionate guidance and support from Fire Chief Corey Smedley and his leadership team, from IAFF Local 1664, from Captain Scott Kittner and Lieutenant Michael Moore, and most importantly, from Lisa Higgins. I hope this legislation never has to be used, but if tragedy does occur, I know that I'm comforted in knowing that the families of our fallen firefighters will be taken care of. Thank you, Madam President.
So we have an amendment by Councilmember Glass. Can I hear a second?
The amendment is
I'll defer to Councilmember Luke.
Oops, sorry, pushing the wrong buttons. You want me to speak to my amendment, right? Certainly recognizing and thankful for Councilmember Glass's leadership on the months. No one should have to bear that kind of administrative mess in the middle of a family tragedy that occurred while serving Montgomery County. But mercifully, we were able to at least accomplish working through the back end of things with MCPD and FOP Lodge 35. And I want to thank Lee Holland, who was here, might not be here in the moment, and for our executive leadership team at MCPD and our Office of Labor Relations. Because here's the thing, we don't want to legislate things that are collectively bargained for typically, but we do want to memorialize them in legislation if we are in fact all on the same sheet of music, which we are, and that is the basis for putting forth the amendment that everyone received related to MCPD. So we add them in their appropriate group and their appropriate number of service years. And to clarify, the service years that are there are different than what is present for MCFRS because they are in fact collectively bargained that way. So that being said, the only amendment before us today is with respect to MCPD and line of duty deaths affecting their pension benefits. And we will circle back at a later date. Again, I am working closely with our partners at McGeo and the Sheriff's Office and Department of Corrections to make sure we're encompassing all potential line of duty deaths that fall within the county pension system. Thank you.
So the amendment, so everybody knows, is on the addendum on the agenda, so everybody can hear it. So we have a motion from Councilmember Don Luedtke and a second by Councilmember Katz. I have Councilmember Will Jowondo, who has a comment on this.
Thank you. I want to thank the sponsors of the bill and also Councilmember Luedtke for this amendment. I will be supporting it. And I want to also just flag that when we're looking at the future, other like sheriff and others, I think we need to also be looking into all line of service deaths to make sure that this is updated. You know, we lost Mr. Bell in May, who was heroic, pulled the bus over, as he was having a heart attack, prevented loss of life, and then unfortunately passed away. One of our MCDOT ride-on bus operators. We need to pass this today. We need to get it done. I'm so glad we're getting it done quickly. But as we're looking at coming back, I'd love to work with colleagues to make sure that this is happening across the board, because anyone right now who's dedicated their lives to public service and dies in the line of doing that service should have no issue getting their pension or any money that they're required to get. So I appreciate the sponsors and look forward to supporting this amendment.
Seeing no more other questions, and we have a motion by Councilmember Don Luedtke, second by Katz. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, amendment approved. Is there anybody else who has a question on this bill? Seeing none now, thank you, Councilmember Mink. This is a roll call to approve Expedited Bill 3125.
We need a motion to
amended.
approve as amended, which I gladly make.
Favor? It's a roll call. That's what I said before.
Councilmember Lukey?
Yes.
Councilmember Lukey votes yes. Councilmember Mink?
Yes.
Councilmember Mink votes yes. Councilmember Sales?
Yes.
Councilmember Sales votes yes. Councilmember Stewart?
Yep.
Councilmember Stewart votes yes. Councilmember Glass?
Yes.
Councilmember Glass votes yes. Councilmember Katz?
Yes.
Councilmember Katz votes yes. Councilmember Friedson?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedson votes yes. Councilmember Jawando?
Yes.
Councilmember Jawando votes yes. Councilmember Falcom?
Yes.
Councilmember Falcom votes yes. Councilmember Funding Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Funding Gonzalez votes yes.
Thank you so much. This was unanimous. Thank you again for the sponsors. Final item on the agenda. And I see your former colleague right in the corner. So I need, this is an action item on the resolution to confirm or reject the county executive's nominee for Director of the Department of Recreation, Mr. Gabriel Albornoz. I will entertain a motion to confirm the appointment of Gabe Albornoz as the new Recreation Department Director. Can I get a motion?
moved.
So moved.
It's moved by Council Vice President Marilyn Balcom, second by Council Member Sales. Those in favor, please raise your hand. It was unanimous, Gabe. Motion approved. The council will be in recess until January 12th, but rest assured that we will continue to work in support of the residents of Montgomery County. Please do not hesitate to contact our offices for assistance. Happy holidays to all. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.